What if we could close our eyes tonight and drift back, not just through centuries or millennia, but through hundreds of millions of years? What if the earth beneath our feet, so familiar in daylight, revealed its other faces strange, alien worlds that existed long before our kind ever walked across them? As you lie there now, wrapped in warmth and listening in stillness, I invite you on such a journey. Tell me, where are you listening from tonight? Is it early morning, with faint light pressing against the window? Or is it deep night when the stars themselves feel close enough to touch? Wherever you are, and whatever hour it is, this story is for you. Settle in. Let the outside world soften, and let your mind step into one far older. The chapter we enter is the Mesozoic era, a span of time lasting more than 80 million years, unfolding between 250 and 66 million years ago. You know it already in fragments: the Triassic, the Jurassic, the Cretaceous. These names whisper of dinosaurs, the giants of textbooks and childhood fascination. But here, together, we will go deeper. For this was not just the age of dinosaurs, it was the Earth's true age of reptiles, when the land, seas, and skies were all reshaped into something profoundly different. Mainstream science explains the Mesozoic in terms of fossils, climate, and geology. We know continents were joined and then pulled apart, that oceans rose and retreated, that plants transformed from ferns to flowering blossoms. We know creatures evolved, thrived, and disappeared. But speculation allows us to add another layer. What would it feel like to stand there? What colors would fill the skies? What sounds would echo through the forests? What scents of strange flowers and resinous trees would drift on the breeze? This era was not just data in stone. It was a breathing, humming world. Imagine the Triassic, when the Earth was still healing from its greatest extinction. Life fragile, yet determined. Then picture the Jurassic, a lush, green expanse where the first colossal herds of sauropods shook the ground with their weight. And finally, the Cretaceous, alive with color and song, as flowers bloomed and feathered creatures called to one another beneath skies soon to darken. Each age a world in itself, yet all bound together in a single sweeping era of transformation. And so, tonight, I ask you to join me, not just to learn, but to dream, to let this story unfold in your imagination, as though you were truly there, walking through time in step with giants. If you find yourself drifting towards sleep as we wander together, let it be a gentle passage, like stepping quietly into another world. Before we begin, one small invitation. If you find comfort in these journeys, consider staying connected, perhaps by subscribing or simply returning here whenever you need another night's passage through ancient worlds. But no pressure, the space is yours to rest in. The Triassic begins with silence. The Earth has just endured its darkest hour, the Permian extinction, a cataclysm that erased nearly 90% of all species. The oceans, once vibrant, had grown poisonous and barren, forests withered. The air itself thinned. For a moment, in geological time, life teetered on the edge of vanishing altogether, yet somehow it did not. Out of devastation comes renewal, and the Triassic dawn is proof of resilience written in stone and bone. To step into this world is to walk across a planet scarred and austere, but alive again. Imagine a vast supercontinent, Pangaea, stretching nearly from pole to pole, its spine a single colossal landmass encircled by the global ocean of Panthalassa. From above, the Earth would appear stark, its colors deep red and brown, deserts stretching across interiors where rainfall never reached. The climate is harsh, with blistering summers and frigid winters, extremes that shape every creature struggling to endure. This is not the lush paradise of later ages. It is a testing ground, a crucible where survivors carve out fragile footholds. Mainstream science tells us that the Triassic was a time of recovery and experimentation. Lineages lost in the Permian gave way to new forms. Amphibians clung stubbornly to swamps and rivers, their bodies relics of older worlds. Reptiles, hardier and more versatile, began to flourish, filling niches left empty by the vanished. Among them were the archosaurs, the ruling reptiles, whose descendants would one day dominate sky, sea, and land. But in these early years, no dominance was guaranteed. It was a time of trial, of beginnings, of lives balanced on the edge of extinction and endurance. Pause here and imagine standing at the heart of Pangaea. The land stretches flat and open, an ocean of sand and rock beneath a burning sky. Winds sweep across the plain, carrying dust that settles into every crevice. On the horizon, a river glimmers, its waters precious, lined with stubborn plants that cling to its edge. You hear the croak of a massive amphibian, its body half submerged, its skin glistening in heat. Beyond, a small reptile scurries across cracked earth, its movements quick, cautious, as though every shadow might conceal danger. The air tastes of dust and resin, sharp with the scent of scorched plants. It is an alien Earth, ours, yet not ours. Among the most striking features of the Triassic world is its stillness. Forests are sparse, composed mainly of hardy conifers and cycads. Ferns and horsetails reclaim patches of ground, but the density of life is low compared to later eras, where we picture dense jungles of dinosaurs. The Triassic is leaner, its ecosystems fragile, rebuilding from loss. Yet this fragility carries beauty. The sky glows copper at sunset, painting deserts in hues of fire. Storms roll across empty plains with sudden fury, lightning tearing across the horizon. Every moment feels raw, elemental, as though the earth itself is young again. The survivors of the Permian developed remarkable strategies. Amphibians, such as Mastodonsaurus, grew to immense sizes, their crocodile-like jaws snapping at fish and small reptiles. They are relics of the past, yet formidable. Alongside them emerged the first turtle ancestors, armored wanderers who carried shields of bone against the harsh world. Reptiles like Proterosaurus and Erythrosaurus, with their massive heads and sprawling bodies, stalked riverbanks as apex predators. These are not dinosaurs, not yet, but they set the stage, testing the forms that survival might take. Pangaea itself shapes evolution. With continents joined, species can spread across immense distances, but the vast interior is hostile desert, cutting populations into isolated pockets. This creates pressures, forces that sculpt diversity. Some reptiles evolve speed, able to dash across barren stretches in search of water. Others grow bulkier, conserving heat and moisture. Amphibians cling to shrinking wetlands, while insects adapt to arid climates, their forms sturdy, resilient. Every adaptation is a gamble, tested in landscapes that offer little mercy. Pause again and reflect. This was a world without birdsong, without flowering meadows, without mammals scurrying in abundance. It was quieter, stranger, yet in this quiet, the seeds of the future were sown. Life was not abundant, but it was inventive. Each creature was a pioneer, stepping into niches unclaimed, finding ways to endure where millions before had failed. The earth itself seemed to demand innovation, and those who answered would shape the next 200 million years. Mainstream paleontology teaches us to see this as a period of experimentation, and rightly so, but through speculation, we glimpse its atmosphere. Imagine the tension of living in such a world, where extinction was recent memory, and survival was not guaranteed. How would creatures sense time? Would instincts be sharper, more urgent, as if life itself remembered how close it had come to ending? Perhaps even silence carried weight, reminding each species of the fragility beneath their feet. The Triassic dawn, then, is less a triumphant rebirth and more a fragile awakening. Life stirs cautiously, testing boundaries, reshaping Earth one small step at a time. Amphibians bellow in swamps, reptiles scurry across dunes, archosaurs sharpen their tools of survival. None yet know the dominance they will achieve, the empires of flesh they will one day build. For now, they live in a world that is harsh but possible, fragile but promising. The Triassic deepens, and life begins to claim its footing. Out of the fragile stillness, a new dynasty stirs, the archosaurs. This group, whose name means ruling reptiles, will come to define the age. Their lineage will branch into crocodiles, pterosaurs, and dinosaurs, shaping Earth for millions of years. But here at first, they are only contenders. Their bodies are leaner, their legs more upright than sprawling reptiles before them, giving speed and endurance. Where others crawl, archosaurs stride. Where others cling to the past, they step toward the future. In this crucible, small proto-dinosaurs appear. Conifers, for instance, darts across dry riverbeds. A lightweight hunter, no taller than your hip. Its body is delicate, yet swift. Its teeth sharp for catching insects, lizards, or small prey. Herds of them may have gathered, their agility offering safety in numbers. They are not the towering giants we imagine when we say dinosaur, but they are pioneers, testing forms that will echo into the Jurassic. To watch them move is to glimpse the spark of what is coming. Mainstream paleontology tells us that archosaurs succeeded because they were efficient. Upright posture allowed them to breathe and run simultaneously. Unlike their sprawling competitors, their bodies wasted less energy. In climates of extremes, sweltering heat by day, piercing cold by night, efficiency was survival. As the Triassic progressed, the balance shifted. Older reptile predators faded, amphibians dwindled, their swamps shrinking. Archosaurs multiplied, filling deserts, rivers, forests. The story of dominance began, though none yet knew how far it would reach. Pause here. Imagine standing on the edge of a Triassic floodplain. The ground is cracked, the air hot, but a storm brews in the distance. Thunder rolls, lightning arcs across clouds, and rain begins to fall, thick, sudden, and violent. Within minutes, the parched earth floods, torrents carving channels, plants swelling with moisture. From the riverbank, conifers emerge in groups, their slender bodies glistening as they chase insects flushed from the soil. Above, pterosaurs, the first true flyers, take to the air, their wings stretched like living kites. For a moment, the world feels alive with motion, as though it has shaken off the silence of extinction. Yet, the Triassic was not only a time of life's return, it was also restless, volatile. Volcanic activity scarred the supercontinent, releasing gases that altered climate. Seasons swung violently, with scorching summers followed by winters of frost. Pangaia's vastness created deserts at its center, where monsoons rarely reached. Creatures that endured here developed remarkable toughness. Crocodile-like phytosaurs adapted to rivers, their bodies armored and their snouts long, hunting fish with precision. Pterosaurs, strange, armored herbivores, shuffled across plains, their backs covered in bony plates like living tanks. Life was inventive, bold, almost experimental. Speculation invites us to imagine different outcomes. What if the crocodile-line archosaurs, abundant and powerful, had outcompeted the proto-dinosaurs completely? Would Earth have become a world of armored, semi-aquatic reptiles ruling both land and water? Fossil evidence shows how close this came to happening. For much of the Triassic, it was not clear who would dominate, crocodile-line predators or dinosaur ancestors. Evolution is never inevitable. Dinosaurs did not rise because they were destined. They rose because chance, climate, and time allowed it. A small shift, and Earth's rulers might have been very different. Pause again. Picture a world where no dinosaur steps into the Jurassic. Instead, phytosaurs reign at rivers, their jaws snapping shut with thunderous force. Armored aetosaurs trudge across plains, their herds glinting in sunlight. Flying reptiles still wheel above, but the land is ruled by creatures whose forms feel alien, armored, and amphibious. This is not fantasy. It is a path Earth nearly took. The fact that dinosaurs triumphed is a reminder of history's fragile contingencies, of how much is owed to chance. Toward the end of the Triassic, the Earth itself shifted violently. Rifting began to tear Pangaea apart, opening the seeds of the Atlantic Ocean. Vast volcanic eruptions shook the continents, spewing lava and gases that changed climate once again. Many creatures that had dominated early Triassic landscapes perished in this upheaval. The stage cleared once more, and into this void, dinosaurs surged. What had been small, marginal, experimental forms now grew bold, diverse, and resilient. By the dawn of the Jurassic, their rule was secure. But in the Triassic itself, nothing was certain. Every creature alive bore the shadow of extinction and the hope of survival. Forests of cycads and conifers rose cautiously, spreading across valleys. Insects hummed in heat. Reptiles of every shape, slender, armored, swift, tested themselves against the world. The earth was restless, alive with change, carrying both the memory of death and the promise of future. Science shows us this balance, but speculation lets us feel it. Imagine standing at dusk on a Triassic plain. The heat of day fades, and a chill creeps in quickly. Stars spill across a vast sky. From the dark, a chorus of calls rises. Amphibians in marshes, reptiles along riverbanks, insects in flight, fireflies or their Triassic ancestors glimmer faint. In the distance, the silhouette of coelophysis herds flickers against the horizon, their bodies sleek, their calls sharp and nervous. You breathe in dust and resin, and for a moment, you know this world is living, immediate, fragile. The Triassic dawn ends with a sense of transition. It is not yet the world of giants, not yet the lush jungles of the Jurassic. It is a prelude, a testing ground, a time when life strained forward into new shapes and possibilities. Every creature is both survivor and pioneer, carrying forward the fragile thread of life that had nearly been broken. And so, as the Triassic fades into memory, we step toward the next chapter, the Jurassic bloom. The deserts will give way to forests. Giants will rise, their necks stretching toward the sky. Predators will grow larger, more cunning, more terrible. The earth will soften into green, and the silence of survival will transform into the thunder of herds. The dawn is over. The day begins. The Triassic was a stage of recovery, but it was also a theater of giants. Giants, not of the kind we remember from movies and textbooks, but stranger, more ancient forms. In this era, dinosaurs were not yet the dominant rulers of the land. They were small, swift, and marginal, living in the shadow of far older lineages. Instead, the power of the age belonged to the crocodile-line archosaurs, predators and grazers alike, whose bodies seemed forged for extremes. They were the giants in waiting, shaping ecosystems, while dinosaurs remained an afterthought. The Rauisuchians were not alone. Their kin, the phytosaurs, thrived in rivers and wetlands. At first glance, they resembled crocodiles, long-snouted and armored, but their nostrils sat high on their heads, near their eyes. This adaptation allowed them to lurk just beneath the surface, their gaze above water even as the rest of their body lay hidden. They snapped fish with sudden violence, dragged animals from the shore, and ruled watery domains across Pangaea. Dinosaurs in these habitats were insignificant, small bipeds who skirted the edges, wary of jaws that could crush bone with ease. Pause here. Imagine yourself walking along a Triassic riverbank. The air is hot, the water slow and green with algae. Insects buzz thickly. Dragonflies the size of your hand drift above the reeds. You step carefully, for the mud is treacherous. Then, without warning, the water erupts. A phytosaur surges upward, jaws clamping around an unsuspecting amphibian. The sound is a thunderclap, a spray of water cool against your skin. The struggle is brief. The prey is gone. The river falls silent once more, the surface smooth, as if nothing had happened. This is life in the Triassic, sudden, violent, and unforgiving. Giant amphibians still lingered, echoes of an older world, creatures like Mastodonsaurus, with skulls nearly a meter long, haunted swamps and lakes. Their bodies were massive, their jaws wide, their lives tethered to the water. They were survivors of the Permian collapse, clinging to Nietzsche's dinosaurs had not yet claimed. Standing near one, you would hear the deep rumble of its call, see the water tremble with its movements. But even these titans were fading, their dominance slipping, as reptiles tightened their grip on the land. Mainstream science frames this era as one of competition between lineages: crocodile-line archosaurs, Rauisuchians, phytosaurs, etosaurs, filled almost every ecological role. They grazed, they hunted, they ambushed. Dinosaurs existed, yes, but as supporting characters, small-bodied opportunists with little claim to grandeur. For much of the Triassic, it seemed that the age of crocodiles might be inevitable. Their adaptability, their strength, their sheer diversity made them masters of both land and water. Dinosaurs were background figures in a world already spoken for. Speculation deepens this picture. What would it feel like to walk among these rulers, knowing the creatures that fascinate us most? The dinosaurs were minor players. Imagine standing on a plain where Rauisuchians stalk herds of herbivores. Their heavy footfalls shake the ground. Their bellowing calls echo like thunder. Smaller dinosaurs scatter like birds before them, keeping to shadows, surviving on insects, carrion, whatever scraps the giants leave behind. To us, raised in a culture where dinosaurs symbolized dominance, the sight would be humbling. These crocodile-line rulers were Earth's true emperors, if only for a time. Pause again. Picture a Triassic wetland at dusk. Amphibians croak low notes across the water. Dragonflies glimmer and the surface breaks as a phytosaur glides silently beneath. On the shore, an atosaur shuffles, an armored plant-eater, its back covered in bony plates. Its body is low and slow, its snout rooting through ferns for food. To predators, it is difficult prey, its armor a living shield. Dinosaurs in this scene are absent. Pushed to the periphery, this is a tableau where crocodile kin and amphibians carry the weight of ecosystems, and where the future of dominance has yet to be decided. Why did crocodile-line archosaurs nearly claim the Earth? Science points to climate. The Triassic was arid, its interior deserts, punishing. Crocodile-line reptiles, with their sturdy bodies and versatile diets, thrived in conditions that challenged others. Dinosaurs, in contrast, were still lean, experimental, vulnerable. For millions of years, the world seemed shaped for crocodiles, not for their distant cousins, and had conditions remained unchanged, perhaps they would have continued their reign, shaping a future Earth that looks nothing like our own. The giants in waiting remind us of how fragile history is. Evolution does not crown rulers by destiny, but by circumstance. Rauisuchians rose because their bodies matched their age. Phytosaurs flourished because rivers welcomed them. Amphibians lingered because swamps persisted. Dinosaurs bided their time because niches were filled. At any point, a small shift, more deserts, fewer forests, less opportunity, could have locked them forever in the margins. The Triassic, then, is not only the dawn of dinosaurs. It is a contest, a stage where many lineages stake their claim. Crocodile-line archosaurs nearly won. Dinosaurs nearly remained small. The giants in waiting roared, hunted, and thrived, and though their dominance would end, for a moment they ruled an Earth unrecognizable to us. As we pause here, the question lingers. What if they had continued? What if crocodilians, not dinosaurs, had inherited the next 50 million years? In the continuation of this chapter, we will explore that speculation, imagining a world where the age of crocodiles replaced the age of dinosaurs, and how differently Earth's story might have unfolded. Speculation opens doors that science alone cannot. For much of the Triassic, crocodile-line archosaurs were the rulers of Earth. Their bodies were armored, their jaws lined with teeth, their forms as varied as the niches they filled. Some grazed plants with shovel-shaped snouts, others stalked as swift hunters. Still others lurked in rivers, blending with water until the moment of ambush. Dinosaurs remained in the background. But history is fragile. Had climates remained harsher, forests thinner, rivers broader, the balance might never have shifted. The age of crocodiles could have stretched not only through the Triassic but through the millions of years that followed. Imagine this world. Instead of sauropods raising long necks above trees, herds of massive herbivorous crocodilians graze across plains. Their armor glints in sunlight, their tails swaying like living fortresses. They rumble together in deep bellows, sound carrying across tundra and desert. Predators arise too, vast Rauisuchian descendants whose bodies are taller, faster, and deadlier. Their roars split the stillness, their shadows cast like thunderclouds over herds. Dinosaurs remain small, tucked into edges of ecosystems, scavengers rather than rulers. The Earth becomes a crocodilian planet, scaled hides gleaming beneath ancient suns. Pause here and imagine yourself within such a landscape. You stand on a cliff, overlooking a valley. Below, herds of armored crocodile giants browse on cycads, their backs ridged with plates. The ground shakes as predators give chase, lunging with upright strides. Streams glimmer where phytosaur kin glide silently, their nostrils raised high. The air smells of resin and wet stone, the sounds of bellows and splashes, layering over one another. It is alien, yet strangely coherent, a world that could have. Mainstream science frames crocodilians as limited by physiology. Their sprawling relatives were efficient, but not as dynamic as dinosaurs. Yet speculation allows us to imagine adaptations extending further. What if some became fully endothermic, warm-blooded in their metabolism? What if their lungs, already efficient, evolved further for stamina? Over time, they might have matched dinosaurs in speed and energy, rising to dominate all climates: ice, heat, forests, deserts. None would have barred them. They might have evolved into titans, greater than any sauropod, predators fiercer than any tyrannosaur. Consider how this would shape Earth's story. Flight might still emerge, but perhaps from crocodilian ancestors rather than feathered raptors. Wings of scaled hide stretch across skies, their bodies armored yet buoyant, gliding over plains. Seas might be filled not with plesiosaurs or ichthyosaurs, but with marine crocodilians grown to monstrous size, pursuing ammonites through black depths. Even flowering plants, arriving in the Cretaceous, might adapt under different pressures, pollinated not by small feathered creatures, but perhaps by insects hiding in armored swamps. Evolution would weave a different web, one where dinosaurs never became the icons we know. Pause again. Reflect on how strange it feels to imagine Earth without them. No brachiosaurs silhouetted against Jurassic trees, no triceratops herds under Cretaceous skies, no tyrannosaur looming in thunder. Instead, the memory of Earth would be armored hides, ridged spines, jaws that open like gates of bone. Our myths, our childhoods, our imagination would not be filled with dinosaurs, but with crocodilian empires, rulers of land and water alike. Speculation can stretch further still. What if intelligence had arisen not in mammals after the dinosaurs, but in crocodilian forms? Already, their kin today show remarkable cunning, patient hunters, problem solvers, social to surprising degrees. With millions more years to adapt, could they have developed hands, tools, fire? Imagine beings whose lineage began in rivers, whose minds sharpened in swamps, building civilizations not in stone temples but in water-carved sanctuaries. Their myths would echo with currents and storms, their gods scaled and armored, their art reflections of ripple and fang. Humanity in such a world might never have arisen or would have shared the earth with thinking reptiles shaped by ancient ice and sun. Mainstream paleontology teaches us how close this alternate path was. Fossils of Rowasuchians, Apatosaurs, and Phytosaurs cover Triassic rocks, evidence that crocodile-lined archosaurs dominated in size and diversity. For tens of millions of years, dinosaurs were small, peripheral, insignificant. The age of dinosaurs, as we know it, was not inevitable. It was an accident of history, shaped by volcanic events at the end of the Triassic, when eruptions poisoned skies and shifted ecosystems. Many crocodile-lined rulers fell, and in their absence, dinosaurs surged. Without that catastrophe, we might never speak of Jurassic or Cretaceous worlds filled with giants. We would instead tell stories of armored crocodilian kings who never ceded the throne. Pause and let that sink in. When we picture Earth's past, we picture the path that was, not the paths that could have been. Yet every fossil is a reminder of branching possibilities, of histories nearly taken. The Triassic whispers of a time when dinosaurs were small and crocodiles were emperors. And though dinosaurs rose, crocodiles never vanished. They endure even now, patient, quiet, survivors of both victory and defeat. Their presence in rivers today is not chance, it is memory, an echo of an age when their kin ruled not only the water, but the land itself. As the Triassic draws to its close, the balance tilts. Volcanic upheaval and changing climates strike hardest at the crocodile line rulers. Their empires falter. Dinosaurs, once marginal, seize opportunity, growing larger, more diverse, more daring. The Jurassic dawns not with crocodiles, but with dinosaurs marching into dominance. Yet the shadow of what might have been lingers. The giants in waiting could have stayed rulers forever. The Triassic ends in fire. Massive volcanic eruptions scar the land, splitting Pangaea, darkening skies, and releasing gases that choke ecosystems. The crocodile line rulers who once dominated falter, many vanishing into extinction. But in the shadow of destruction comes opportunity. As the dust clears, the earth reshapes itself. Where deserts once stretched endless, forests begin to bloom. Where scarcity ruled, abundance takes root. The Jurassic dawns not as a wasteland, but as a green awakening. Imagine stepping into this world. Gone are the vast red plains of the Triassic. In their place rise sweeping forests of conifers and cycads, their fronds unfurling like great parasols. Ferns carpet the ground, spreading across damp valleys. Rivers run fuller, their banks lush with horsetails that stand taller than a person. Rain falls more generously now, the monsoon cycle regular, feeding vegetation that thrives across widening continents. The earth is no longer brittle and scarred. It is verdant, alive, humming with new energy. Mainstream science explains this change through tectonics and climate. As Pangaea begins to break apart, new coastlines form, increasing humidity and moderating extremes. Oceans circulate more effectively, distributing warmth across the globe. The greenhouse effect, amplified by volcanic gases, warms the planet further. The result is a world of steady warmth, stable rainfall, and ecosystems able to support unprecedented biomass. Where once life struggled, it now flourishes. Pause here, close your eyes, and picture the soundscape. Insects drone in great chorus, filling the humid air. Fern fronds rustle as reptiles scurry through undergrowth. From the distance comes the low, thunderous call of a creature unlike anything the Triassic had known. The ground trembles faintly beneath your feet. You smell damp earth, resin from conifer bark, and the sharp tang of cycads in bloom. This is the Jurassic, a world lush, resonant, and alive with giants stirring in its depths. It is here that dinosaurs expand dramatically. Once small and peripheral, they now rise into prominence, filling niches across continents. Herbivores grow massive, their necks stretching toward treetops. Carnivores evolve larger, faster, more efficient, keeping pace with prey. Diversity multiplies as the stability of climate supports ecosystems of astonishing scale. For the first time, dinosaurs become not marginal, but central, the architects of landscapes, the dominant force in food chains. Among the most iconic are the sauropods, whose rise begins in earnest during this time. Creatures like volcanoid and early relatives hint at the colossi to come, long-necked herbivores capable of reaching the canopy itself. Their bodies, massive and barrel-shaped, anchor powerful legs that support extraordinary weight. They gather in herds, grazing not as individuals, but as moving forests of flesh. To stand in their presence would be to feel the earth itself alive with motion. Each footfall, a drumbeat in the symphony of survival. Speculation allows us to step into their world. Imagine walking through a Jurassic valley as dawn spreads gold across conifer crowns. Mist clings to the forest floor, rising in tendrils around trunks. Then, out of the haze, emerges a sauropod herd. Dozens move in unison, their necks swaying like ships' masts, their tails trailing behind like whips of shadow. The sound is immense, not only the thunder of feet, but the low rumble of calls, resonating through their bodies. A communication that vibrates in your chest. The air tastes of crushed ferns, damp soil, and the musk of giants. You are small here, yet not unwelcome. only a witness to life scaled beyond imagination. The vegetation itself reinforces their scale. Conifers tower above, cycads bloom with stiff leaves, ferns spread in wide carpets. Unlike the flowering plants of later ages, these forests are monochrome, green upon green, their beauty found in density and height. Resin drips from bark, sticky and fragrant. Spores drift in the air, visible in beams of sunlight filtering through canopies. It is a world both simpler and stranger, rich in biomass, yet lacking the colors we take for granted today. And yet, within this green monotony, dinosaurs thrive as never before. Predators, too, grow larger. Allosaurus begins its lineage in this time, a hunter built for power and precision, with jaws armed in serrated teeth and legs built for pursuit. It embodies the predator of the Jurassic. But in this first bloom, it is not yet alone. Pause again. Imagine nightfall in the Jurassic forest. The air cools, though never cold. Crickets chirp, frogs croak near riverbanks, and somewhere deep in the canopy, a predator's roar carries like thunder. You feel it in your spine, vibrating through the trees. Above, stars wheel slowly, but their light is softened by mist. Fires do not yet burn on Earth, save for lightning strike. The only flames are the molten rivers of volcanic slopes far away. The night is dark, but it is alive, filled with unseen presence. Mainstream paleontology frames this period as one of stability and expansion, a contrast to the turmoil of the Triassic. Biodiversity rises dramatically, with reptiles not only on land, but in sea and sky. The first true pterosaurs take wing, their bodies adapted for soaring over coasts and valleys. Marine reptiles, like plesiosaurs and ichthyosaurs, dominate oceans, their streamlined bodies darting among ammonites. It is a world where every domain, land, sea, and sky, is claimed. For the first time in millions of years, life seems abundant, secure, unshaken by extinction's shadow. And yet speculation urges us to wonder, what was it like to be there? Among the first great herds of sauropods, the first flocks of flying reptiles. How loud was the earth beneath their weight? How thick was the air with spores and scents? What emotions would stir standing in a forest where every tree might hide something vast and ancient? The Jurassic bloom is more than fossils. It is sensation, atmosphere, immersion in a planet transformed. As this first part of the Jurassic unfolds, we see only the beginning. Forests grow denser, sauropods larger, predators more cunning. The bloom is not static, but expanding, reshaping Earth with every century. In the continuation, we will follow this expansion further into the dominance of sauropod kingdoms and the world they created, an Earth filled with giants whose steps defined an age. Mainstream science explains this gigantism through efficiency. Sauropods evolved lightweight bones filled with air sacs, reducing weight without sacrificing size. Their long necks allowed them to feed across wide areas without moving their bulk. Their massive guts processed tough plant matter with relentless efficiency. They lived in herds for protection, their size alone deterring most predators. Each adaptation was not only survival, but transformation. Their presence altered forests, creating open clearings where they grazed, shaping plant communities through constant feeding. In essence, sauropods were engineers, their bulk rewriting ecosystems in their image. Pause here, close your eyes, and picture the sensory world. The air is thick with the scent of crushed ferns, pungent and resinous. The soundscape is layered, the deep rumble of sauropod calls resonating like distant thunder, the hiss of tails swishing, the crackle of branches breaking beneath massive weight. Insects drone in constant chorus, rising and falling like waves. The sun glints off scales, off dew-damp fronds, off the vast curve of a neck stretching skyward. To stand among them is to feel small, but also connected, part of a rhythm older and larger than human imagination. Predators rose to match this scale. Allosaurus, the apex hunter of the Jurassic, prowled in packs or alone, its serrated teeth designed to shear flesh. Its skull was lighter than Tyrannosaurus, but its bite swift, its strategy one of repeated strikes rather than crushing force. Fossil evidence suggests confrontations between Allosaurus and sauropods, battles of patience and risk. To bring down a giant was perilous, but a single kill could feed many mouths. The balance of predator and prey was delicate, a dance of speed, endurance, and opportunity. Speculation allows us to place ourselves in such a confrontation. Picture dusk on the forest's edge. A herd of Camarasaurus moves cautiously, calves huddled close. From the shadows, Allosaurus waits, muscles tense, eyes glinting amber in fading light. The silence stretches, broken only by the cheer of insects. Then the predator strikes, bursting from cover with a roar that shakes the canopy. The herd reacts instantly, adults forming a defensive circle, tails lashing, feet stomping the earth. Dust rises, branches snap, the air fills with sound and movement. The attack is fierce, but uncertain, the outcome balanced on a knife edge. This is survival written in motion, a theater repeated countless times across the Jurassic. The bloom was not only about size, but about abundance. Herbivores thrived in staggering numbers, supporting predators, scavengers, and entire ecosystems of insects and small mammals. Rivers teemed with life, fish, amphibians, crocodile kin. Forest rang with calls of insects and reptiles. Oceans shimmered with marine reptiles, ammonites drifting in spirals of shell. Skies filled with pterosaurs, their wings tracing arcs above coastlines. It was a fullness Earth had not seen since before the Permian extinction, a true rebirth after devastation. Pause again. Imagine lying in a meadow beneath cycads, watching the sky. A group of pterosaurs glide overhead, their wings catching thermals. Their cries echo, sharp and eerie. In the distance, a sauropod herd moves like mountains across the horizon, their necks rising and falling like waves. The air is alive with spores drifting in sunlight, with the hum of unseen creatures. For a moment, you feel suspended in a world that is both alien and achingly alive, a reminder that Earth is not static but endlessly changing. Mainstream paleontology frames the Jurassic as a period of continental drift. Pangaea continues to break apart, opening the Atlantic and Indian Oceans. This tectonic shift isolates populations, driving further diversity. New coastlines create habitats for marine life. Mountain ranges rise, altering climates. With every rift and split, life diversifies further, filling niches that multiply as continents separate. This geological restlessness underpins the biological bloom, reminding us that Earth's living skin is inseparable from its shifting bones. Speculation pushes us further. What would it feel like to live in this stability, to grow up in a world defined not by scarcity but by abundance? Would survival feel less urgent, more communal? Would herds of giants inspire awe not only in us but in themselves, as their calls echoed across valleys? Perhaps in such a world, consciousness itself would feel different, shaped by constant presence of giants, by the unending chorus of life. The Jurassic bloom, then, is not only a natural chapter, it is a meditation on abundance. It reminds us that Earth, given balance, can overflow with life. It shows us how quickly ecosystems rebound from destruction, how forests regrow, how rivers swell again, how giants emerge to walk where silence once reigned. It is resilience, written across continents, breathed into the lungs of creatures whose size defies imagination. As this chapter closes, we stand at the threshold of wonder. Sauropods rise from shadows into dominance, their herds shaping every horizon. Predators sharpen, forests thicken, oceans teem. The bloom continues, unfolding into full majesty. In the next chapter, we step deeper into this world, into the true kingdom of sauropods, a realm where size itself becomes a strategy, where giants are not exceptions, but the rule, and where Earth resonates with footsteps that echo through time. The Jurassic bloom was not a passing flourish. It was the foundation for something larger, something that would shape the very identity of the age. Out of its forests and valleys rose the sauropods, Giants so vast that they remain unmatched in all of Earth's history. Brachiosaurus, Diplodocus, Apatosaurus, and their kin transformed landscapes simply by existing. They were not rare marvels, isolated curiosities. They were common, abundant, central. The Jurassic was not merely their time, it was their kingdom. To encounter a sauropod is to confront scale itself. Brachiosaurus, with forelimbs longer than its hind, held its head higher than any other, towering above treetops like a living crane. Diplodocus stretched horizontally, its body longer than most modern whales, its whip-like tail, a weapon and a balance. Apatosaurus, stockier, carried mass like a mountain on legs, its presence both steady and unstoppable. Each species embodied gigantism in a different way, each adapted to thrive on vegetation that blanketed valleys and slopes. They were not only rulers of the Jurassic, they were sculptors of it, reshaping ecosystems with every bite and step. Mainstream science helps us understand how such size was possible. Sauropod bones were not solid, but honeycombed with air sacs that reduced weight while maintaining strength. These same air sacs connected to lungs, making their respiratory systems far more efficient than ours, ensuring that their immense bodies received enough oxygen. Their necks, sometimes over 10 meters long, allowed them to sweep vast areas of vegetation without moving their bulk. Their guts, enormous and slow, fermented tough plant matter, extracting every ounce of energy from ferns, cycads, and conifers. Gigantism was not indulgence, it was strategy, a solution to survival in a world of abundance. Pause here. Imagine standing in a clearing as a herd of Diplodocus moves past. Their bodies stretch endlessly, necks swaying above you, tails dragging behind like living rivers. Each step sinks deep into soil, sending tremors through your chest. The air is heavy with the musk of giants, with the scent of crushed vegetation, with the dust stirred by their passage. They move slowly, but together they are overwhelming, a procession of life scaled to impossible dimension. You feel small, almost invisible, yet awed, witness to a rhythm older and larger than comprehension. The herds themselves reveal another key to their success: safety in numbers. Fossil evidence suggests that sauropods lived and moved in groups, protecting calves by encircling them within walls of muscle and bone. Tracks preserved in mud show adults alongside young, footprints of massive circles that tell stories of movement and care. To predators, a calf was temptation, but to approach was to risk being crushed beneath feet, heavier than boulders or struck by tails cracking like whips. Safety came not from aggression but from presence, from sheer immensity. The ecosystem bent around them, where sauropods fed. Forests opened into clearings, where they migrated. Paths formed, pressed into landscapes by generations of feet. Their droppings fertilized soil, spreading seeds across valleys, shaping plant communities. Like elephants in modern savannas, they were keystone species. Their impact felt at every level of the food chain. Predators depended on them, scavengers trailed them, plants adapted to survive their relentless feeding. The Jurassic was not only a world of giants, it was a world built by them. Speculation allows us to walk deeper into their shadow. What would it feel like to wake each morning in a world where herds of sauropods roamed like weather? Imagine standing on a ridge at dawn, mist rising from a river, and seeing dozens, perhaps hundreds, moving slowly across the plain. Their calls resonate, low and deep, rolling like thunder across the valley. Birds of that age scatter before them, insects rise in shimmering clouds. The sun breaks over their backs, painting their scales gold, their long necks silhouettes against the sky. It would be a daily spectacle, or not reserved for rare moments, but woven into ordinary life. Mainstream paleontology emphasizes their efficiency, but it also acknowledges their vulnerability. Their size deterred most predators, but not all. Allosaurus and other large theropods prowled their world, patient and strategic. A single healthy adult sauropod was nearly impossible to kill, but calves and the weak were targets. Fossil bones show signs of attack, teeth marks etched into history. These predators shaped sauropod behavior, pushing herds toward cooperation and vigilance. The balance of giant and hunter defined the Jurassic landscape. Pause again. Picture a herd at dusk, clustered near a river, calves pressed close to their mothers. Adults form an outer ring. From the tree line, shadows move, predators waiting, testing, measuring. The sauropods rumble, tails swish, feet stamp, the ground itself answering their defiance. The standoff lasts minutes, maybe hours, until predators retreat, knowing the risk outweighs reward. Silence falls again, broken only by the croak of amphibians and the hiss of insects. The herd rests, the cycle continues, and life endures beneath stars. Speculation carries us further still. If the Earth had stayed Jurassic, if climate and ecosystems had remained as they were, might sauropods still dominate today? Could herds of long-necked giants roam continents alongside us, their calls echoing above highways and cities? The thought bends imagination, yet science suggests they were astonishingly successful. They thrived for more than 100 million years, far longer than humanity has existed. Perhaps without the asteroid that ended the Cretaceous, descendants of sauropods might still be architects of ecosystems, their thunderous steps defining Earth's rhythms even now. In reflecting on them, we glimpse the fragility of our own dominance. Humanity measures history in centuries, millennia at most. Sauropods ruled for epochs beyond comprehension. They endured climates that shifted, continents that broke apart, predators that sharpened their fangs, and still they flourished. To stand in their presence is to confront humility, to remember that our story is brief against the canvas of life. As this first part of the chapter closes, we have only entered their kingdom. The true majesty of sauropods lies not only in their bodies, but in the worlds they created and the echoes they left. In the continuation, we will step deeper into this realm, into the sensory immersion of valleys filled with giants, into the speculation of their unbroken reign, and into the question of what it means to share Earth with beings so vast. The kingdom of the sauropods was more than spectacle. It was the foundation upon which entire worlds rested. Their size, their numbers, their migrations. These were not isolated curiosities, but forces of nature, as shaping as wind or rain. To understand the Jurassic is to understand these giants, for wherever they walked, they altered the Earth. Imagine a floodplain after heavy rain. The soil is soft, rich with new growth. Across it marches a herd of Apatosaurus, their feet sinking deep, each step leaving a crater that fills with water. As they pass, they carve new channels for streams, shape microhabitats where insects and amphibians thrive. Birds, small feathered ancestors, follow behind, pecking at disturbed soil for insects. Even predators linger in the herd's shadow, scavenging scraps or waiting for the chance to test the weak. Every creature, directly or indirectly, depends on these colossal engineers. Mainstream science highlights how sauropods transformed energy flow. Their massive bodies required constant feeding, and their digestive systems, fermenting vast amounts of plant matter, recycled nutrients into ecosystems. What they consumed, they returned, enriching soils with organic matter, dispersing seeds across valleys. Just as elephants today open forests into savannas, sauropods opened canopies, creating mosaics of habitats. Their reign was not passive. It was ecological architecture written in scale and appetite. Pause here. Imagine yourself within such a herd. The air vibrates with low calls, sounds that you feel in your chest as much as hear. Dust swirls in beams of sunlight as tails sweep the ground. Leaves rain down from conifers, their resin scent pungent and sharp. Predators, sharpened in response. Allosaurus and its kin could not hope to topple healthy adults, but they tested the edges, striking at calves or lingering near herds in search of opportunity. Fossil evidence suggests bone injuries healed in sauropods. Signs of attack survived. Yet even predators seem small in their presence, their victories rare and perilous. The balance of giant and hunter defined the Jurassic not as constant war, but as a tense harmony where size alone dictated possibility. Speculation allows us to ask, what if sauropods had never ceded dominance? If the Earth had remained in its Jurassic climate, warm, wet, abundant. Could they have endured indefinitely? They lasted already for more than 100 million years, far longer than mammals have held sway. Their strategy, gigantism itself, proved remarkably successful. Perhaps without the asteroid that ended the Cretaceous, sauropods would still shape Earth today. Pause again. Picture a modern valley not filled with cities and highways, but with herds of giants. Diplodocus stretch across grasslands, their tails cracking like thunder. Brachiosaurus loom above forests, their heads grazing canopies like cranes among trees. Calves grow in safety within walls of flesh, predators circling warily at the edges. Humanity, if it arose at all, would grow beneath shadows of titans. Our myths shaped not by lions or wolves, but by giants who shook the ground. Perhaps we would build temples in their honor, carve stories not of dragons, but of the sauropods we lived beside. Our world would not be ours alone, it would be theirs, as it was for so long. The kingdom of sauropods also carried subtle mysteries. How did they communicate across distances? Did their deep calls echo like wails across valleys, signaling migration, warning of predators, or binding herds together? How did they care for their young, ensuring survival of calves in worlds where predators circled? Fossils hint at answers, but leave much unknown. Speculation invites us to imagine societies of giants, herds with traditions passed in rhythm, memory etched not in words but in movement and sound. Pause once more. Feel the presence of giants moving past. The air shimmers with heat. The ground trembles. The horizon fills with silhouettes of necks swaying like ships at sea. In that moment, you realize scale is relative. To them we are as fleeting as insects, unnoticed, yet sharing the same earth. And in their presence, humility blooms, reminding us of how brief our story is against the vastness of life. The sauropods' kingdom was not eternal. Though they endured through the Jurassic and beyond, climates shifted, continents drifted, ecosystems changed. But for tens of millions of years, they defined Earth unmatched in scale and abundance. Their footsteps are long gone, yet their echoes remain in stone, in fossilized bones that stretch across museum halls, in imaginations that tremble at their majesty. As we close this chapter, one reflection lingers. The sauropods remind us that dominance is not always ferocity. Sometimes it is patience, endurance, and sheer presence. Their reign was not swift conquest, but long persistence, a kingdom measured in ages rather than years. And so we move forward, deeper into the Jurassic, into the realm of those who lived in their shadow. The predators sharpen now, the hunters who tested giants, the rulers of fear, even in a world of abundance. From the herds of sauropods, we turn to the jaws of Allosaurus, the apex predators of the Jurassic Age. The Allosaurus, perhaps the most iconic of Jurassic hunters, stood over 8 meters long, with skulls built for precision and jaws lined with serrated teeth. Unlike the later tyrants of the Cretaceous, its bite was not built for crushing, but for tearing. Fossil evidence suggests it used its jaws like hatchets, slashing repeatedly into prey and withdrawing before delivering another strike. Its neck muscles were powerful, allowing it to wrench flesh free with every move. Agile and formidable, it was the lion of its time, an apex hunter that stalked valleys filled with giants. Close behind, in presence, was the Ceratosaurus, a predator marked by a distinctive horn on its snout and blade-like teeth. It was shorter and stockier than Allosaurus, yet no less formidable. Its long, muscular tail provided agility, allowing sudden bursts of speed through undergrowth. Fossils suggest it may have been an ambush hunter, favoring cover and waterways, striking at prey with sudden violence. In landscapes of forest and river, Ceratosaurus was a terror unseen until the final moment. Pause here. Imagine yourself in a Jurassic clearing at dawn. Mist clings to the ground, birds call faintly in canopies, and a herd of stegosaurs grazes quietly among ferns. The stillness seems fragile, almost staged. Then a shadow moves at the edge of vision, silent, deliberate. Allosaurus waits, its body blending with trees, its breath slow, its gaze fixed. The herd shifts nervously, sensing presence, but not yet danger. The silence deepens. Your own breath catches, mirroring theirs. In this moment, before the strike, the forest itself holds still, as though listening. Mainstream paleontology pieces. Together these behaviors from fossil clues. Bones of sauropods and stegosaurs bear tooth marks of Allosaurus. Some fossils suggest healed wounds, evidence of prey that escaped attacks, leaving scars of survival. Trackways hint at cooperative movement, suggesting that Allosaurus may have hunted in groups, coordinating attacks on prey too large for a single hunter. Ceratosaurus fossils are often found near waterways, reinforcing the image of ambush. Though the record is incomplete, the impression is clear. The Jurassic was a landscape shaped by predators as much as by giants. The presence of predators influenced not only prey, but entire ecosystems. Herds moved cautiously, their routes shaped by water, cover, and risk. Sauropods gathered in open valleys where their numbers offered safety. Stegosaurs and other herbivores developed defenses, spines, plates, tails armed with thygomizers. Even the plants they fed upon felt the ripple effects, as feeding patterns shifted with migrations and predator pressure. Predators were not only killers, they were shapers, their influence echoing across forests, rivers, and plains. Pause again, picture standing by a Jurassic riverbank as twilight deepens. Dragonflies the size of sparrows skim the water, fish leap briefly, and frogs croak from shadows. Then, with a ripple, a Ceratosaurus emerges from reeds, its scales glistening in fading light. It moves silently, muscles coiled, nostrils flaring as it scents the air. It steps forward slowly, each movement precise, each breath measured. Then, in an instant, it lunges. Water splashes, prey screams, the forest explodes with sound. The hunt is sudden, violent, and final. Silence returns just as quickly, broken only by the river's flow. Mainstream science emphasizes energy balance. Predators must weigh risk against reward. A single hunt gone wrong could mean fatal injury. For Allosaurus, the strategy may have been repeated strikes, wearing prey down rather than delivering a killing blow at once. Ceratosaurus, meanwhile, may have specialized in ambush, minimizing risk with sudden surprise. Both strategies highlight the precarious life of predators. Powerful, yes, but never invincible. Their survival depended on precision, patience, and opportunity. Speculation adds another layer. What did it feel like to be prey in this world, living under constant watch? Did sauropods sense predators long before they struck, their low calls carrying warnings across valleys? Did stegosaurs position themselves deliberately to protect calves, their plates gleaming like warning signs in sunlight? Perhaps every dawn carried tension, every evening a sigh of relief. To live in the Jurassic was not simply to survive abundance, but to live with fear as a daily rhythm, as much a part of the world as sunlight or rain. Predators themselves were not uniform. Fossils reveal diversity among theropods. Smaller hunters like Ornitholestes pursued quick prey, while larger cousins rivaled Allosaurus in certain regions. The ecosystem supported not one apex, but many, their territories overlapping, their strategies distinct. This mosaic of predators ensured no prey was entirely safe, no habitat entirely free of danger. The Jurassic bloom was lush, yes, but it was also edged with teeth. Pause once more. Imagine the sensory immediacy of a hunt, the heavy smell of blood in the air, metallic and sharp, the thud of feet striking soil, the crash of branches as titans collide, the roar of Allosaurus, deep and resonant, reverberates in your chest. The cries of prey rise, frantic and piercing, echoing across valleys. Then silence falls, sudden, total, filled only with the rustle of leaves settling back into stillness. It is not cruelty, not malice. It is the rhythm of life, written in predator and prey alike. The predators of the Jurassic were not merely threats, they were catalysts. They pushed herbivores to evolve defenses, herds to organize, plants to adapt, ecosystems to diversify. Without them, the balance would have tipped. Abundance unchecked, forests consumed too quickly. They were the edge that kept systems sharp, the sculptors of resilience. As this first half of their story closes, we glimpse only part of their world. In the continuation, we will step deeper into coordinated hunts, into the sensory immersion of predator-prey confrontations, and into reflection on whether predators more than giants were the true shapers of Earth's story. The predators of the Jurassic were not shadows at the edges of life. They were central to its rhythm. Their movements dictated migrations. Their presence shaped landscapes. Their hunger sculpted behavior across species. In the kingdom of giants, they were the counterweight, the balance, the reminder that survival was never guaranteed. Allosaurus, the archetype of Jurassic hunters, may have hunted in groups. Fossil sites known as bone beds contain multiple individuals together, alongside the remains of prey. Some paleontologists suggest this points to cooperative behavior, though whether it was coordinated hunting or opportunistic gathering remains uncertain. Still, speculation allows us to imagine herds of sauropods shadowed by packs of predators, their strategies refined through time. A single Allosaurus may have been daunting. A group working in rhythm could bring down even a giant. Picture such a hunt at dawn. A valley lies hushed, mist rising from conifers, the ground soft with dew. A herd of Camarasaurus moves slowly, calves pressed close within protective circles. From the ridges above, multiple Allosaurus stalk, their silhouettes cutting through fog. They do not charge blindly. They watch, wait, test. One steps forward to flush the herd, another circles to flank, a third lingers in shadow. The attack is sudden but planned, each predator striking with precision. Dust rises, calves scatter, adults lash with tails. The clash reverberates like a storm, the roars of hunters, the bellows of prey, the crack of branches underfoot. Whether the hunt ends in triumph or failure, the landscape is marked by its violence, the balance maintained by struggle. Ceratosaurus, meanwhile, brought another strategy to the table. Stockier and suited to dense vegetation, it favored ambush along rivers and forests. Its presence meant that no waterhole was truly safe. Herbivores approaching to drink risked more than thirst. They risked jaws bursting from shadows. Its horned snout and deep bite set it apart from Allosaurus, less a pack hunter than a solitary terror. In an ecosystem of variety, strategies diverged, ensuring that predators were everywhere and in every form. Pause here. Imagine standing at the edge of a Jurassic waterhole. Dragonflies dart above the surface, frogs croak from reeds, and a herd of stegosaurs lowers their heads to drink. The air hums with life, tranquil, almost serene. Then a ripple, barely noticed, stirs at the edge. Before alarm can spread, Ceratosaurus erupts from cover, jaws clamping down on an unwary juvenile. The herd bellows, tails whip, dust fills the air. But the predator has already retreated into shadow, prize secured, the waterhole once again still. In such moments, tranquility was always an illusion, safety always fleeting. Mainstream paleontology reminds us that predators also scavenged. Fossil evidence suggests tooth marks on bones long after death, signs of opportunism as much as hunting. Apex predators were not only killers, they were cleaners, recycling nutrients, preventing disease, sustaining cycles of life. In this, they were both feared and necessary, their presence ensuring balance as much as threat. Speculation pushes us further. Were predators more influential than giants in shaping the Jurassic? Sauropods defined landscapes, but predators defined behavior. They taught vigilance, sharpened defenses, structured migrations. Without them, herbivores might have consumed unchecked, plants overgrazed, ecosystems destabilized. Predators were the unseen architects, ensuring that abundance did not collapse under its own weight. Pause again, reflect on modern parallels. Lions in the savannah keep herds moving, wolves in forests control deer populations, sharks in oceans maintain balance in fish communities. Remove them, and systems falter. The Jurassic was no different. Allosaurus, Ceratosaurus, and their kin were more than hunters. They were guardians of equilibrium, ensuring that the bloom of life remained sustainable. The sensory world of their hunts adds another layer. Imagine the silence before an attack, the forest unnaturally still, birds falling quiet, insects pausing their drone. You stand, heart pounding, sensing something unseen. Then, in an instant, the world erupts, branches shattering, feet pounding, roars tearing the air. The smell of blood sharpens, the ground quakes, the sky echoes with bellows. Then silence again, as sudden as its breaking. The rhythm is one of contrast, quiet and violence, life and death, abundance and fear. Predators also evolved alongside their prey. As stegosaurs grew formidable tails, armed with spikes, predators adapted strategies to avoid them. As sauropods formed protective herds, predators tested new tactics. Flanking or ambush evolution was not static, but conversational, each move answered by a countermove, each adaptation sparking another. The Jurassic was a dialogue written in tooth and bone, resilience and response. Speculation stretches outward. What if predators had ruled more decisively? If Allosaurus packs had perfected coordinated hunting, might they have rivaled even the largest sauropods regularly? Could ecosystems have shifted toward predator dominance, herbivores merely surviving under constant attrition? Or would such intensity have collapsed balance, proving that even apex hunters cannot survive without restraint? These questions linger, reminders that dominance is always relative, always fragile. Pause one final time. Picture the forest at night. Stars glimmer faintly above conifers, mist pools low among ferns. From the darkness, a roar erupts, not close, but vast, carrying across valleys. It is the voice of a predator, declaring presence, asserting dominion. The herd below shifts uneasily, calves pressing tighter, adults stomping the ground in restless vigilance. The night is not empty, it is claimed, and in that claim lies the true heart of the Jurassic: balance, tension, and the constant presence of teeth in shadow. As we close this chapter, we turn from land to sea. The oceans of the Jurassic were no less alive with hunters, their depths filled with leviathans whose presence matched even the Allosaurus in majesty. In the next chapter, we dive beneath the waves into the ancient seas, where reptiles soared through water as pterosaurs soared through sky, and where survival meant mastery of depths as much as forests. On land, the Jurassic world belonged to sauropods and their predators. But to step into the ocean was to enter another kingdom, one equally vast, equally alive, and equally filled with giants. The seas of the Mesozoic were no passive backdrop. They were theaters of survival, worlds within worlds, as rich in drama as any forest or valley. To look beneath the surface is to glimpse a realm both alien and familiar, a stage where reptiles ruled as completely as dinosaurs did on land. Imagine yourself standing on a Jurassic shore. The air is warm, thick with salt and the cries of pterosaurs wheeling above. Waves crash against rocks, sending spray into the air. The horizon stretches endlessly, a mirror of silver and blue beneath the sun. Then you step into the water, and the world shifts. Sound dulls, light scatters, and pressure presses gently against your skin. You are no longer on Earth as you know it. You are in the ancient seas domains of Leviathan. The ichthyosaurs were among the first true rulers of this watery world. Shaped like modern dolphins, yet far larger, some reached lengths of 15 meters. Their bodies were streamlined, built for speed, their fins guiding them through currents with effortless grace. Fossil evidence reveals that they gave birth to live young, a remarkable adaptation that freed them from the need to return to land. In them, evolution found one of its most perfect swimmers, a predator that could chase fish, squid, and ammonites across oceans with relentless pursuit. Pause here. Picture diving alongside one. Sunlight filters down in shifting beams, painting scales with silver. The ichthyosaur glides effortlessly, its tail sweeping side to side in rhythm. It passes you, eye vast and dark, a gaze that feels both alien and intelligent. Around it, schools of fish scatter like glitter, the water alive with motion. You hold your breath, heart racing, knowing you are in the presence of a master of the seas. Close kin to these hunters were the plesiosaurs, with long, snake-like necks stretching from barrel bodies. Some species had necks so long they seemed improbable, stretching 6 or 7 meters in supple arcs. Mainstream paleontology frames these creatures as the marine counterparts to dinosaurs, filling niches left open. When reptiles returned to the sea, ichthyosaurs mastered speed, plesiosaurs mastered reach and maneuverability, plesiosaurs mastered brute force. Each lineage adapted to a role, together building ecosystems that mirrored the complexity of land. In the oceans, as on land, survival meant specialization, innovation, and balance. Pause again. Imagine hovering in deep blue water. Above, beams of sunlight ripple. Below, darkness yawns. Then from that dark, a plesiosaur rises, its jaws open wide, lined with teeth like knives, its body massive, its eyes fixed on you. The water around it vibrates with power, every movement a statement of dominance. Then, with a single stroke of flippers, it glides past, ignoring you for larger prey. Relief washes over you, but awe lingers, the awe of encountering a ruler in its element. The seas also carried beauty beyond predators. Ammonites, spiral-shelled mollusks, drifted in countless numbers. Their shells, some no larger than a coin, others wider than a wheel, gleamed with iridescent. Reef systems flourished too, ancient corals and sponges building structures where fish and invertebrates thrived. Plankton bloomed in warm waters, their abundance shaping Earth's carbon cycles, altering atmosphere and climate. These microscopic beings, unseen by the giants, were nonetheless essential. They remind us that oceans are not only theaters of predators, but of symbiosis, chemistry, and invisible labor. Speculation asks us to imagine diving deeper. What would it feel like to live in such seas, surrounded by creatures so alien, so vast? Picture moon-silver light filtering down at dusk, turning ichthyosaurs into silhouettes of speed. Picture reefs alive with motion, every crevice filled with fish, crabs, mollusks. Picture the sound, the muted rush of currents, the clicks and pulses of creatures communicating in frequencies beyond our hearing. The ocean is never silent, never still. It is alive, a constant whisper of movement and breath. Pause once more. Reflect on the timelessness of oceans. Even today, when we dive beneath waves, we glimpse echoes of ancient seas. Dolphins recall ichthyosaurs. Whales recall plesiosaurs. Nautiluses recall ammonites. The forms are different, but the rhythms remain. The ocean is continuity, a realm where extinction reshapes but never silences, where life always finds a way to return to familiar forms. In the Jurassic seas, as in ours, survival was a dialogue between predator and prey, between abundance and scarcity, between chance and adaptation. As this first half of the chapter closes, we have only touched the surface. The ancient seas were deeper, stranger, richer still. In the continuation, we will descend further into the lives of ammonite swarms, the terror of giant plesiosaurs, the speculation of what it would feel like to swim through ecosystems of leviathans. The surface glimmers, but the depths call, and in them lies the full story of life beneath Jurassic waves. To descend deeper into the Jurassic seas is to leave behind the warmth of the sunlit shallows and enter a realm of shadows and silence. Here, light filters weakly, fading into twilight and then into darkness. Yet life persists in forms both delicate and monstrous. In this hidden world, the drama of survival plays out no less fiercely than on land. Though its stage is quieter, its movements softer, its actors unseen until the moment of encounter. Ammonites were among the most abundant of these actors. Picture them drifting in great swarms, spirals of shell catching dim light, their tentacles fluttering gently as they pulse forward. Some no larger than a hand, others massive discs wider than a doorway. They moved as both hunters and hunted. Schools of fish dart among them, weaving between spirals, while predators circle in patient arcs. When threatened, ammonites released jets of water, darting away in bursts of sudden speed. And yet, for all their defenses, they were prey to nearly everything larger than themselves. Their abundance, their fragility, ensured they were keystones, sustaining oceans by their sacrifice. Pause here. Imagine yourself suspended in the midst of such a swarm. Spirals turn around you, gleaming faintly, their shapes hypnotic, almost otherworldly. You reach out, and one passes close, its shell iridescent, its tentacles waving like ribbon. For a moment, you feel as though you are floating within living geometry, surrounded by patterns that repeat endlessly. Then, from below, a shadow surges upward. A plesiosaur lunges, jaws gaping, scattering ammonites in an explosion of shells and fear. In an instant, the beauty fractures into chaos, and you realize how fragile such abundance always is. The plesiosaurs were the apex predators of these seas, rivals to Allosaurus on land, their skulls stretched longer than a man, their jaws lined with teeth designed for crushing bone. Their bodies were massive, propelled by 4 flippers that beat with relentless rhythm. They were not creatures of speed alone, but of power, dominating wherever they swam. Fossil evidence shows stomach contents of plesiosaurs filled with fish, ichthyosaurs. Even other plesiosaurs. Nothing in their world was safe from their hunger. Speculation brings them closer. Imagine hovering in open water, silence pressing heavy. Then a shape emerges from the gloom, vast, unstoppable. The plesiosaur turns slowly, eye locking with yours, its gaze cold, ancient, and unmoved. For a heartbeat, you feel its attention measure you. Then, with a sweep of flippers, it passes, leaving you suspended in its wake, shaken by the realization that in this ocean you are smaller than prey, smaller even than thought. The reefs of the Jurassic added further wonder. Built of corals, sponges, and invertebrates, they created labyrinths alive with color. Fish darted in shimmering schools, crabs scuttled among crevices, sea urchins clung to stone. Here, the drama was subtler, but constant. Competition for space, for sunlight, for survival. Reef fish nibbled at algae, mollusks clung tightly against predators, and every corner teemed with life. Above them, plankton bloomed in cycles, microscopic yet mighty, their abundance shaping carbon cycles that reached skyward, altering climate itself. These tiny drifters, invisible to the giants, were nonetheless the foundation upon which oceans balanced. Pause again. Picture drifting above a reef. The water glows with sunlight, every surface alive with motion. Bright fish flicker in unison, shells gleam in patterns. Anemones wave gently with the current. The sound is muted, yet constant. The crackle of shrimp, the rasp of parrotfish, the distant calls of marine reptiles. The reef feels eternal, a timeless stage that existed before humanity and will endure long after. Mainstream science teaches us that these ecosystems were essential in stabilizing life on Earth. Ammonites cycled nutrients, plankton drew carbon from the atmosphere, reefs created habitats for thousands of species. Oceans were not simply reflections of land, they were engines of stability, ensuring that life could expand and diversify. Without them, even the grandeur of sauropods on land would have faltered, for the balance of atmosphere and climate begins with the sea. The timelessness of oceans lingers as reflection. Unlike forests that burn and regrow, unlike plains that shift with herds, the sea remains, always vast, always cycling. Predators rise and fall, ammonites bloom and vanish, plankton drift endlessly. Yet the rhythm endures. The oceans of the Jurassic remind us of this continuity, that beneath waves, life is ancient, unbroken, and eternal in its renewal. Pause one last time. Imagine standing again on that Jurassic shore. The sun lowers, painting water in gold. Pterosaurs wheel above, diving for fish. Out beyond breakers, plesiosaurs glide, their necks rising like serpents before plunging again. Further still, the dark is ruled by plesiosaurs, their jaws snapping in silence. Between them drift countless ammonites, shells gleaming like scattered stars. The ocean breathes, alive and immense, its theater endless. You breathe with it, understanding that seas are not simply water, but memory, carrying stories deeper than stone. As this chapter closes, we leave the ocean with humility. Life beneath waves was as grand, as rich, as dramatic as life on land. The Jurassic seas shimmered with abundance and terror, beauty and hunger, resilience and fragility. To dive within them is to remember that Earth's story is not only written in forests and mountains, but in tides that rise and fall, in waves that whisper of ages past. And so we turn again to land, to the next great transformation. For the Jurassic bloom will give way to something new, the Cretaceous age, when flowering plants explode into color, when new dynasties of dinosaurs rise, and when Earth itself shifts once again. The seas will remain eternal, but the land is about to change forever. The Jurassic bloom does not end in silence. It evolves. As the Earth turns toward the Cretaceous, new rhythms take hold, new colors spread, new voices rise into the chorus of life. Where once the world was green upon green, a living cathedral of ferns and conifers, the Cretaceous brings transformation, a layering of fragrance, hue, and sound that reshapes the very texture of existence. The age begins around 45 million years ago, and with it, continents continue their long drift apart. What was once the vast bulk of Pangaea has fractured into recognizable forms. Gondwana in the south and Laurasia in the north splinter further, carving oceans and seaways between them. Coastlines multiply, climates diversify, and ecosystems adapt to new spaces. The Earth warms, seas rise, shallow waters flood continents, creating inland seas that teem with life. No longer a planet of monolithic land and uniform climate, the Earth becomes a patchwork of habitats, each distinct, each alive with experiment. Mainstream paleontology highlights this as a time of diversification, a branching outward of life into forms unprecedented. The greatest of these changes comes with plants. For hundreds of millions of years, forests have been composed of ferns, cycads, and conifers, green, resilient, but limited in variety. Now, flowering plants appear, angiosperms, delicate yet revolutionary, spread across valleys and hills, carrying with them the first blossoms, the first petals, the first fragrances to drift upon air. In an instant measured in millions of years, Earth is no longer monotone but multicolored, no longer scentless but perfumed. The Cretaceous becomes a canvas painted with flowers. Pause here. Imagine yourself stepping into such a transforest where once the air smelled only of resin and spores. It now carries sweetness, floral notes drifting like invisible music. Blooms of red, yellow, and violet punctuate green, scattering meadows with color. Insects buzz louder than before, their bodies adapted to nectar, their wings dusted with pollen. The hum of bees rises. The flutter of butterflies adds movement to air. For the first time, the forest sings not only with reptiles and birds, but with insects carrying life from blossom to blossom. You breathe deeply, and the Cretaceous air feels richer, layered with sensation. This revolution is ecological as well as sensory. Flowering plants reproduce more efficiently, attracting pollinators with rewards of nectar. Insects, in turn, evolve into forms familiar to us. Bees, ants, butterflies, tiny but powerful agents of change. Herbivores respond. Dinosaurs that once grazed only ferns now turn to new plants, their jaws adapting to chew tougher leaves, their digestive systems adjusting to fresh diets. Hadrosaurs, the duck-billed dinosaurs, rise in this era, their teeth arranged in batteries that grind vegetation with remarkable efficiency. Their herds spread across continents, shaping meadows with every step, echoing the sauropods of the Jurassic, yet thriving in a world of flowers rather than conifers. In their calls, low, resonant, carrying over miles, you can almost hear the voice of Earth itself, adjusting to new abundance. Predators evolve as well. With herds of hadrosaurs and ceratopsians multiplying, carnivores diversify, each finding strategies to match prey. Smaller theropods dart through forests in pursuit of juveniles. Larger tyrannosaur ancestors grow more robust, sharpening into forms that will one day dominate. Fossil evidence records this transformation in bone and tooth, in footprints that cross new plains, in the scars of battles etched into skeletons. The Cretaceous is not merely a continuation of the Jurassic. It is a reimagining of Earth itself. Pause again. Picture walking through a meadow at dawn. The grass is damp with dew, flowers open with the rising sun, insects lift into air in golden clouds. Across the plain, a herd of hadrosaurs grazes, their tails swaying in rhythm, their calls low and echoing. Calves step carefully between adults, safe within the mass. Insects hover above blossoms, their wings shimmering. The air tastes of pollen, thick with sweetness. Suddenly, from the tree line, a predator calls, sharp and resonant. The herd freezes, silence pressing down. Then, with sudden urgency, they move as one, their footsteps shaking the ground. The meadow empties, but the flowers remain, swaying in wind, their fragrance lingering in the air. Mainstream science emphasizes the role of climate in this transformation. The greenhouse world of the Cretaceous, with higher sea levels and warmer temperatures, created stable, fertile environments for flowering plants to thrive. Inland seas, serrated climates, carrying moisture deep into continents. The result was diversity on a scale unseen before. Ecosystems layered, dynamic, filled with both giants and subtleties. The Earth of the Cretaceous was not only alive with dinosaurs, but with every texture of life woven into complex patterns. Speculation lets us dwell on the sensation. What would it be like to live surrounded not only by giants, but by blossom, to walk through meadows buzzing with insects, to hear their hymn as a constant background, to breathe air thick with fragrance, to taste fruit as flowering plants bore their first offerings? Perhaps the Cretaceous would feel closer to us than the Jurassic, not alien but familiar, a world where flowers we know today first opened, where colors we see now first painted the earth. The dinosaurs remain, but the world around them begins to echo ours. The Cretaceous transformation was not a sudden shift, but a slow layering of change. Forests of conifers still stood tall, cycads still grew, ferns still blanketed valleys. But alongside them now spread blossoms, meadows, fruiting plants. The old and the new coexisted, weaving a richer tapestry than before. Each step forward carried memory of what had been, even as new possibilities opened. It was not replacement, but integration, life expanding into more complex forms, more vibrant expressions. As this first half of the Cretaceous unfolds, we glimpse only part of its revolution. In the continuation, we will see how new dynasties of dinosaurs, ceratopsians with horns, tyrannosaurs sharpening into tyrants, hadrosaurs multiplying in herds, claimed this transformed Earth. As the Cretaceous deepens, the transformation becomes unmistakable. Where the Jurassic had been a world of giants rising from forests of conifers, the Cretaceous is a world of diversity, of contrast, of detail. Colors bloom in flowers, sounds multiply with insects. Ecosystems weave themselves into patterns more intricate than any before. Dinosaurs remain rulers. They share their stage with new voices, new scents, new shapes. The world is alive with nuance, every valley humming, every meadow painted. Among the most remarkable of the new dynasties were the ceratopsians. With frills extending from skulls and horns curving forward, they became some of the most iconic of all dinosaurs. Triceratops would come later, but its ancestors already carried the beginnings of shields and spikes. Herds of these animals moved through meadows like armored caravans, their heads adorned with displays that were as much about communication as defense. To see them gather would be to witness a pageant of horns, frills flashing in sunlight, calls echoing across plains. Their presence was both formidable and beautiful, guardians of meadows filled with flowers. The hadrosaurs, too, multiplied. With their wide, duck-billed mouths and battery-like teeth, they grazed tirelessly on flowering plants, grinding leaves into energy. They lived in herds so vast that their movements shook valleys. Their calls carried like low thunder across miles. Fossils suggest they developed complex communication, perhaps even distinct voices. Imagine standing on a hill as a hadrosaur herd passes below, their bodies stretching in endless procession, their calls rising and falling in resonance like the breath of Earth itself. Predators sharpened in response. Tyrannosaur ancestors grew larger, their skulls more robust, their bites more powerful. They were not yet the titans of the very end of the Cretaceous, but the path was already clear. Each generation carried refinement, jaws more crushing, senses more acute, strategies more lethal. Fossil trackways and skeletons tell of confrontations between predator and prey, battles in meadows of flowers, hunts played out beneath buzzing skies. The image of Tyrannosaurus rex as apex predator belongs to the Cretaceous finale, but its lineage grew within this transformation, sharpening alongside the world that birthed it. Pause here. Picture the sensory immediacy of a Cretaceous meadow. Flowers sway in wind, their petals catching sunlight in hues of red, violet, and yellow. Insects hum in endless chorus. Bees hover, butterflies drift, ants march in columns. A herd of hadrosaurs grazes, their tails swishing, their calls soft, resonant, layered with tone. Among them, ceratopsians lift their frilled heads, horns gleaming. The air smells sweet, rich with pollen, layered with the musk of giants. Then, from the tree line, a predator emerges, silent, deliberate. The meadow holds its breath, life poised between peace and violence, abundance and hunger. Mainstream paleontology frames this period as one of unparalleled biodiversity. Flowering plants spread rapidly, altering not only diets, but landscapes. Insects adapted in tandem, their diversity exploding, their forms recognizable to us today. Dinosaurs diversified to match, each lineage finding niches within this transformed world. Inland seas supported marine reptiles and fish, coastlines teemed with new life. Forests grew thicker with flowering undergrowth. Earth in the Cretaceous was no longer uniform. It was mosaic, dynamic, layered with contrasts. Speculation allows us to wonder, was this the most beautiful age Earth has ever known? Imagine the sky alive with pterosaurs, their wings catching sun. Imagine valleys painted with blossoms, buzzing with pollinators. Imagine meadows filled with herds, their voices rising like thunder, their forms framed by flowers. The Jurassic had its grandeur, but the Cretaceous carried subtlety, detail, richness of sensation. Perhaps no age before or since matched it for sheer abundance of texture, for the interweaving of color, sound, scent, and motion. Pause again. Reflect on how different it would feel to live in such a world. Each step would release fragrance, each breath filled with pollen. Nights would echo not only with roars, but with insect song, cheer, and buzz carrying through dark. Days would be brighter, more vivid, colors splashed across hillsides, petals opening and closing with the sun. To be alive in the Cretaceous would be to live in a symphony of senses, where survival carried not only urgency, but immersion in beauty. The transformation carried consequences beyond aesthetics. Flowering plants altered soil, atmosphere, and climate cycles. Their rapid reproduction increased energy flow, sustaining larger populations of herbivores. Insects became critical agents of survival, forging new relationships that would echo into the present day. Mammals, small and nocturnal, fed on seeds and insects, finding niches in shadows that would one day prepare them for their own ascent. The Cretaceous was not only a bloom, it was a prelude, a layering of potential that pointed toward futures unseen. Predators, too, felt this complexity. No longer could a hunter rely solely on strength. Cunning, speed, and precision became essential. To stalk prey in meadows filled with blossoms meant stealth through color and sound. To chase herds meant strategy, patience, risk. The arms race between predator and prey sharpened. Each adaptation met with counter-adaptation, each move answered by another. In this dialogue, evolution quickened, pushing lineages forward into forms that would define the end of the Mesozoic. Speculation lingers. If the Earth had remained in its Cretaceous bloom, uninterrupted by catastrophe, might dinosaurs still dominate today? Could flowering meadows still echo with hadrosaur calls? Plains still tremble beneath ceratopsian herds? Forests still sway beneath tyrannosaur shadows? Perhaps humanity would never have risen, or would have done so beneath the watchful eyes of giants, sharing a world still painted in flowers and ruled by scales. The asteroid that ended it all reminds us of how fragile such beauty is, how easily abundance can be erased. The Cretaceous transformation was not just biological, it was sensory, emotional, existential. It turned Earth into a place of richness, unlike any before, a place where life reached new heights of diversity and resilience. Yet it also carried within it fragility, for every bloom is temporary, every abundance subject to change. The world we know today carries echoes of it: flowers in fields, insects in chorus, birds descended from theropods. But the fullness of that age remains beyond us, a lost world blooming eternally in imagination. And so, as this chapter closes, we stand at the height of the Mesozoic. The land is painted in blossoms, the air thick with song, the earth alive with giants and subtleties alike. The change is constant, and evolution continues its experiments. In the next chapter, we turn our gaze to the strange and the singular, to evolutionary paths that branched and vanished, to creatures that remind us how inventive life can be in its search for survival. The late Cretaceous was Earth at its most dramatic, a stage where the giants of evolution played their final act. Continents had drifted close to the shapes we know today. Inland seas split North America into eastern and western lands. Warm climates spread across continents, and ecosystems brimmed with both old lineages and new marvels. This was the age of tyrants and horned kings, an age of teeth, horns, and herds that shook the earth with every step. At the pinnacle stood Tyrannosaurus rex, the tyrant lizard king, over 12 meters long, weighing nearly 10 tons. It was a predator without equal. Its skull, massive and robust, housed teeth as long as knives, serrated to shear flesh and crush bone. Unlike Allosaurus of the Jurassic, Rex delivered not slicing strikes, but devastating, crushing bites. His jaws closed with pressures greater than any other land animal known, capable of snapping bones as easily as twigs. It was not only a hunter, but a scavenger, its nose sensitive enough to detect carcasses from miles away. To live in its shadow was to live under constant possibility of sudden death. Yet the tyrant did not rule uncontested. Across the same plains roamed the horned kings, ceratopsians, with triceratops at their apex, with frills stretching behind their skulls and horns jutting forward like lances. They were both defenders and symbols of power. A single triceratops weighed as much as an elephant, its horns over a meter long, its body a wall of muscle. In herds they were fortresses in motion, moving as living barricades through meadows and forests. Fossil evidence reveals battles etched into their bones, gouges from predator teeth, punctures from horns, healed wounds from conflicts both within herds and against hunters. Their lives were not quiet, but turbulent, each day a gamble of survival. The hadrosaurs too flourished in this world, with broad, duck-billed mouths and teeth arranged in grinding batteries. They could devour vegetation with efficiency unmatched by any other herbivore. Their herds numbered in the hundreds, moving across floodplains and valleys like rivers of life. Some bore elaborate crests, resonant chambers that may have carried sound across miles. Their calls, low and haunting, echoed like the horns of ancient music, signaling danger, guiding migrations, binding herds together. To walk near a hadrosaur herd was to feel part of a vast moving symphony, the earth itself trembling beneath their weight. Pause here. Imagine yourself standing in a late Cretaceous valley at dusk. The air is warm, thick with the scent of flowers and damp earth. In the distance, you hear it, a low, resonant call, deep and haunting. Then another answers, and soon the valley hums with a chorus of hadrosaurs. The ground vibrates faintly beneath your feet as the herd approaches, bodies stretching in endless procession, tails swaying, crests glowing in fading light. For a moment, you are a witness to a world alive with giants, where every sound is amplified by scale, every movement monumental. Predator and prey clashed constantly in this world, their conflicts written in fossil evidence. Triceratops skulls have been found with puncture wounds matching the teeth of T. rex, some healed, some fatal. Tyrannosaurus teeth in turn, bear wear from grinding against bone, proof of its bone-crushing feasts. Entire bone beds show mass deaths of hadrosaurs, perhaps victims of floods, droughts, or predators striking at vulnerable herds. Each fossil is a fragment of a story, a glimpse into battles that defined ecosystems. The late Cretaceous was not a peaceful kingdom, but a contested one, ruled by balance of power and sharpened by hunger. Speculation allows us to feel the immediacy of such encounters. Picture a meadow at dawn. Mist rises, flowers glisten, insects hum. A herd of triceratops grazes, their frills glowing faintly in morning light. Calves stumble clumsily, shielded by adults who form a living wall. The herd is calm, the valley filled with the sound of chewing, the steady rhythm of breath. Then a silence falls. Birds scatter from trees. The air thickens with tension. From the shadows emerges T-Rex, each step deliberate, each exhale heavy. Its eyes fix on the herd, its jaws part slightly, revealing teeth glistening with dew. The ground trembles as predator and prey lock in silent recognition. The outcome is uncertain, but the moment itself is overwhelming, the balance of life distilled into a single breath. Mainstream paleontology emphasizes adaptation as the key to this balance. Tyrannosaurs evolved, not only crushing bites, but forward-facing eyes for depth perception, powerful legs for pursuit, and heightened senses of smell and hearing. Ceratopsians evolved horns and frills, not only for defense, but for communication, recognition, and perhaps even display. Hadrosaurs developed sophisticated teeth and social structures, thriving in numbers too vast for any single predator to overwhelm. Each lineage carried tools honed by millions of years, each survival strategy an answer to the other. Pause again. Reflect on what it means to live in such a world. Every day carried the hum of herds, the shadow of predators, the tension between abundance and danger. To be an herbivore was to live in vigilance. To be a predator was to live in hunger. To be part of this earth was to live in balance. In such a place, survival was never guaranteed, but always earned. The late Cretaceous was the culmination of the Mesozoic, the height of dinosaur diversity, the final chapter before catastrophe. It was a world alive with nuance, meadows painted in flowers, skies filled with insect song, valleys trembling beneath herds, forests alive with predators. It was not only grandeur, but immediacy, a world where every step carried weight, every sound meaning. As this first part of the chapter closes, we have met the tyrant lizard king, the horned defenders, and the herds that sustained them. In the continuation, we will step deeper into their conflicts, their adaptations, and their legacies. We will imagine more vividly what it meant to live beneath the shadow of giants, and how these final rulers of the Mesozoic etched their presence into the Earth's memory. The late Cretaceous world was a crucible of conflict, its valleys echoing with struggles between predator and prey. Nowhere was this tension clearer than in the encounters between Tyrannosaurus rex and Triceratops. Fossils bear witness. Triceratops skulls pierced by teeth, Tyrannosaurus bones scarred by horns. Some wounds show healing, proof that battles were survived. Others remain fatal, silent testaments to violence. These fossils are not relics alone. They are echoes of living dramas, reminders that survival in this world was never guaranteed. Picture such a confrontation. A herd of Triceratops grazes in a meadow, frills glinting in sunlight, horns catching the air like spears. Calves graze cautiously, guarded within the herd. Suddenly, a ripple of tension spreads. Tails stiffen, heads lift, calls echo. From the tree line, Rex emerges, massive, deliberate, its eyes locked on the herd. It strides forward, muscles rippling, jaws parting to reveal teeth gleaming with menace. The Triceratops lower their heads, forming a wall of horns, their calls rising into deep, resonant defiance. For a moment, the meadow becomes still, time balanced on the edge of violence. Then, with a thunderous bellow, predator and prey collide, the clash of teeth and horn resounding across the plain. The outcome of such battles was never certain. so that a well-placed horn could pierce flesh, even bone, driving predators away in injury. Yet the crushing jaws of T-Rex, once landed, could shatter defenses. Fossil records hint at both victories and failures, scars marking survivors of close encounters, skeletons bearing the final marks of defeat. These duels remind us that the late Cretaceous was not an age of absolute rulers, but of fragile balances where power was always contested. Hadrosaurs, too, bore the brunt of predation. Vast herds provided safety in numbers, but predators still struck. Their crests, resonant chambers for sound, may have been used to warn herds of danger, their calls carrying like horns across landscapes. Imagine standing on a hillside as dawn breaks, hearing the haunting chorus of hadrosaurs resonating across valleys, a living alarm system binding herds together. The air trembles with sound, an ancient communication that ensured survival. Fossil sites reveal entire groups preserved together, perhaps victims of floods or hunts, their bones mingled in layers of history. In them, we see not individuals, but communities, bound by voice and presence. Pause here. Imagine walking through such a valley. The air is heavy with the fragrance of flowers, the buzz of insects constant, the ground vibrating faintly. A herd of hadrosaurs grazes nearby, their calls low, mournful, resonant. Suddenly, silence spreads. Birds erupt from trees, insects pause, then the earth shakes. A tyrannosaurus approaches, its steps measured, its gaze fixed. The herd panics, calls rise, bodies surge into motion. The ground quakes as hundreds flee, dust rising like smoke, the air filled with sound and fear. You stand frozen, small, a witness to power beyond scale. In that moment, you understand what it means to live beneath the shadow of giants. Mainstream science emphasizes adaptation as the lifeblood of this world. Tyrannosaurs' refined senses, keen smell, sharp hearing, forward-facing eyes for binocular vision. Triceratops' refined defenses, horns sharpened, frills widened, herds coordinated. Hadrosaurs' refined communication, voices grew more complex, herds more organized, teeth more efficient. Each adaptation was not an endpoint, but an answer. Each survival a dialogue with the other. The predator sharpened the prey sharpened the predator, and together they drove evolution forward. Speculation deepens this vision. What would it feel like to grow up in such a world where every sound could signal death, where every horizon could hide a predator? Would life feel shorter, sharper, more immediate, or would herds, in their numbers, create a sense of safety, a rhythm of belonging? Perhaps fear was not constant dread, but constant awareness woven into existence, as naturally as breath. To live beneath giants was not only to fear them, but to adapt with them, to find resilience in their shadow. The late Cretaceous was also a time of contrast. Amid battles of tooth and horn, meadows bloomed with flowers, insects buzzed in endless symphony, and birds, descendants of smaller theropods, flitted through canopies. Life was not only violent, it was abundant, layered, diverse, in valleys alive with color and sound. Battles were moments in a larger rhythm, life continuing even in the shadow of death. The world was both beautiful and brutal, reminding us that abundance and danger are not opposites, but partners in the dance of survival. Pause again. Reflect on the immediacy of this world. Imagine lying in tall grass at night, the stars bright above, the air alive with the chorus of insects. In the distance, you hear it, the deep call of a hadrosaur herd, rolling like thunder. Then another sound follows, the roar of a predator, sharp, resonant, carrying across the valley. The calls overlap, the chorus of prey and predator blending into one sound, one presence. You close your eyes, listening, feeling both awe and unease. This is what it means to live beneath giants, to be surrounded always by scale, sound, and struggle. The tyrants and horned kings were the final rulers of the Mesozoic. They embodied millions of years of adaptation, refinement, and survival. Their battles shaped landscapes, their presence defined ecosystems, their legacies etched themselves into stone. When we hold their fossils today, massive skulls, serrated teeth, frilled shields, we hold not only bones, but echoes of an age where life balanced constantly between abundance and peril. As this chapter closes, the stage darkens. For all their majesty, for all their dominance, the tyrants and horned kings lived on the edge of catastrophe they could not see. Soon, a force from beyond Earth would sweep away their reign, leaving only fragments in stone. In the next chapter, we turn to that ending. The asteroid, the fires, the long night that followed, the final catastrophe, the curtain fall of the Age of Giants. The Age of Giants is remembered most often for teeth and scale, for the thunder of sauropods and the roar of tyrants. Yet within the shadows of those giants, another revolution was quietly unfolding, one that would not end with extinction, but with survival. It was the story of feathers, of flight, of the first birds. For millions of years, dinosaurs had ruled land and sea, but some lineages sought the sky. Fossil evidence from the late Jurassic reveals the first glimmers of this transformation. Among them was Archaeopteryx, a creature suspended between worlds, bearing both the teeth and claws of reptiles and the feathers of birds. Its wings were not yet perfected for flight, but its presence marked a turning point, the first feathered leap toward skies that would one day echo with birdsong. Feathers themselves predate flight. Fossils from China reveal raptors cloaked not in scales alone, but in plumage. Simple filaments at first, then complex feathers capable of insulation, display, and eventually flight. Their patterns shimmered with colors now lost to us, perhaps reds, blacks, or iridescent blues. They remind us that the Mesozoic was not a world only of green forests and gray hides, but of subtle hues flashing across wings and tails. To imagine it fully is to imagine forests alive with feathered forms, darting, leaping, gliding long before true flight was mastered. Pause here. Imagine lying in a late Jurassic forest at dawn. The air is cool, mist hanging low among ferns. Suddenly, from the canopy above, a call breaks the silence. Shrill, unfamiliar, yet strangely akin to birds we know. You open your eyes to see a feathered creature perched on a branch, wings half spread, body trembling as it calls again. Its voice is rough, primitive, but layered with something eternal. In that moment, you recognize the first whispers of birdsong, carried not in memory, but in possibility. Mainstream science frames this transition as evidence of warm-bloodedness. Feathers began as insulation, trapping heat, aiding survival in cooler climates. They later became tools of display, bright plumage signaling health or dominance. Only then did they shape into flight structures, veins and barbs locking into aerodynamic form. Raptors with feathers leapt from trees, glided from branch to branch, their wings refined through generations. Archaeopteryx stood at the cusp, flight awkward, perhaps limited, but evolution already reaching skyward. Speculation deepens this vision. What did it feel like to see feathers for the first time in a world still dominated by scales? Imagine a predator cloaked not in dull hide, but in vibrant plumage, colors catching sunlight, movements accented by flaring tails and wings. To prey, it must have been terrifying. A hunter descending not only with speed, but with flashing color, with wings that seemed to turn air itself into weapon. To rivals, plumage must have been language, a means of display, warning, attraction. In the silence of Mesozoic forests, feathers spoke volumes before voices fully formed. Archaeopteryx, preserved in exquisite fossils, provides our clearest glimpse into this dawn. Its wings bore true feathers, asymmetrical and structured for lift. Its claws remained sharp, gripping branches like those of reptiles. Its teeth, small but numerous, still lined its jaws. It could fly, but clumsily, perhaps only short distances, its wings carrying it from tree to tree, its flight less like a swallow's and more like a pheasant's. Sudden bursts, frantic flapping, brief arcs through air. Yet in its awkwardness lay potential. It was both dinosaur and bird, a hybrid that carried the blueprint of skies to come. Pause again. And picture yourself in that forest, watching Archaeopteryx launch from a branch. Its wings beat furiously, feathers flashing in dappled sunlight, its body awkward yet determined. It arcs through mist, lands on another branch, and calls again, its voice sharp high, echoing through trees. For a moment, silence follows, and then another call answers from deeper in the forest. You realize you are hearing the first conversation of birds, tentative but real, voices weaving through dawn as though the forest itself were learning to sing. Mainstream paleontology emphasizes the blurred line between dinosaurs and birds. Raptors, like Velociraptor, bore quills on their arms and tails. Microraptor, small and agile, carried feathers not only on its arms but on its legs, forming a four-winged body that glided between trees. The fossil record reveals dozens of such experiments. Creatures testing air, refining wings, failing, and succeeding in equal measure. Flight was not a sudden invention, but a spectrum, a gradual climb from insulation to plumage to lift. Each fossil, each feather etched in stone, is a step in that long ascent. Speculation asks us to imagine forests alive with these experiments. Picture branches crowded with feathered forms, some gliding clumsily, others darting with agility. Colors flash in undergrowth. Wings beat in awkward rhythm, calls overlap in chorus. It is a forest alive not only with roars and bellows, but with shrieks, calls, and early songs. The air itself is learning to carry sound differently, lighter, sharper, layered with notes that anticipate the symphonies of future mornings. The first half of this story reveals a revolution understated yet profound. Feathers began as warmth, grew into display, and transformed into wings. Archaeopteryx and its kin remind us that birds are not merely descendants of dinosaurs. They are dinosaurs, their lineage unbroken, their presence the survival of an ancient dream. As this part closes, we stand on the threshold of skies opening. In the continuation, we will follow these early birds further into their adaptations, their songs, their spread across ecosystems, and their role as survivors of catastrophe. The forest at dawn is alive with voices, voices that will one day outlast giants, voices that carry still in every morning chorus we hear. The first birds were not accidents of chance, they were survivors of experimentation. Each feather, each call, each wing beat was a refinement, small adjustment carried through generations. In their bodies, evolution tested the balance between air and earth, between the old reptilian form and the new avian promise. By the late Cretaceous, forests no longer belonged only to reptiles with scales, but to creatures whose wings transformed silence into movement, whose calls transformed stillness into song. Archaeopteryx had opened the door, but its descendants walked through it with vigor. Fossils reveal Confucius ornis with beaks replacing teeth, plumage flaring in elaborate displays, tail feathers trailing like banners. Others, like Enantiornithes, filled forests across the world, diverse and abundant, each lineage exploring a different style of life. Some perched, others darted through canopies, still others soared above lakes. They were not uniform, but experimental. A multitude of forms carrying one message. The sky was open, and life would claim it. Mainstream paleontology highlights the adaptations that made this possible. Hollow bones, lightened bodies without sacrificing strength. Air sacs connected to lungs, making respiration efficient, a system still present in modern birds. Feathers grew asymmetrical, locking together for lift, bending with air currents. Sternums developed keels, anchoring powerful flight muscles. Every feature, every refinement, carried them further into the air, further away from the ground-bound giants who still ruled the land. Pause here. Imagine waking in a Cretaceous forest at dawn. The night has been filled with insect hum, the distant calls of hadrosaurs, the echo of predators. Then, as the first light filters through canopy, another sound begins, sharp, piercing, layered with rhythm. It is not yet the symphony of a modern dawn chorus, but it is its beginning. The voices of early birds rise, shrill and unfamiliar, yet strangely close to what you know. Their calls echo through branches, weaving into mist, announcing morning with voices that would never again leave the earth. Speculation invites us deeper. What did those voices mean? Were they warnings, territories claimed, songs of attraction, or were they simply expressions, instinctive but resonant, filling the silence, because silence is never natural? Perhaps to the mammals hiding in undergrowth, the birds' calls were alarms or comfort. Perhaps to the dinosaurs grazing in valleys, the voices were background, unnoticed. To us, they would be a revelation, the first music of life beyond survival, the first songs of air. Color added another layer to this revolution. Feathers, unlike scales, carried pigmentation, sometimes structural colors that shimmered in sunlight. Fossilized melanosons reveal patterns, blacks, browns, reds, even iridescent sheens. Imagine forests where not only flowers but wings flashed with color. Males may have displayed for mates with plumes, tails, and crests. Females may have chosen based on brightness, vigor, and resilience. In this, feathers became language, a visual song that paralleled the voices rising at dawn. Pause again. Picture yourself beneath the canopy as light breaks. A small bird-like creature darts across a clearing, its wings shimmering with iridescence, its tail flaring with sudden display. It calls sharply, the sound high, resonant, and other answers from the trees, flashing different colors. The forest alive with motion and light. To stand there is to feel surrounded not only by life, but by communication. Voices and hues intertwined, signals passed across air like messages on wind. Mainstream science reminds us that these early birds were still vulnerable. Many retained claws on their wings, teeth in their mouths, and awkward proportions. Their flight was often clumsy, their survival precarious. Predators stalked them constantly. Raptors leaping into trees, snakes coiling upward, mammals testing new diets. Fossil sites reveal countless individuals preserved mid-motion, caught in volcanic ash, or trapped in sediments. Their feathers frozen in stone. Yet despite vulnerability, they thrived. Their diversity expanded. Their presence spread. Their voices grew louder. Speculation stretches further. What would it feel like to sleep in such a forest, beneath a canopy alive with feathered forms? Would dreams be colored by flashes of plumage, stirred by voices echoing through branches? Would waking each morning carry awe, not only at the giants shaking ground, but at the birds claiming air? Perhaps the greatest shift of the Cretaceous was not only in flowers and herds, but in sound, the subtle layering of voices that turned Earth into a planet of music. The blurred line between dinosaur and bird is one of the most profound revelations of paleontology. Each fossil feather is a reminder that flight was not an afterthought, but a destiny, seeded in warmth, refined in display, perfected in wings. Birds are not descendants of dinosaurs in the distant sense. They are dinosaurs, their lineage unbroken, their presence a survival. When we hear birds today, we hear not only present song, but echoes of Mesozoic mornings, voices that rose even as giants thundered nearby. Pause once more. Reflect on this continuity. Close your eyes and imagine the call of a robin at dawn, the caw of a crow, the trill of a sparrow. Now imagine those voices layered atop a forest filled with triceratops and tyrannosaurs, hadrosaurs and ankylosaurs. The giants pass, the herds move, the predators hunt. But above them all, voices rise in air, carrying messages that transcend time. In this way, the birds remind us that survival is not always found in size or strength, but in innovation, adaptation, and resilience. As the chapter draws to its close, we see the first birds, not as footnotes, but as heralds. They carry forward a lineage that endures when others fall. They remind us that even in ages dominated by giants, subtlety matters, sound matters, wings matter. Their calls, roughened early though they were, announced a new age of life, one that would survive fire, darkness, and extinction. And so, as we move into the final chapters of this story, we prepare for the end. The Mesozoic will not last. The tyrants and horned kings, the sauropods and raptors, the herds and herds of giants, all will fall, but the birds will remain, carrying their voices into every dawn since. In the next chapter, we turn to that ending, the catastrophe from the sky. the fire, the long night, and the rebirth that followed. The late Cretaceous world was vibrant, diverse, and alive in every sense. Giants roamed plains, horned kings clashed in meadows, hadrosaur herds sang across valleys, and tyrants stalked forests with bone-crushing jaws. Birds darted through canopies, insects hummed in symphonies, and flowering plants painted earth in blossoms. Oceans swelled with marine reptiles. Ammonites spiraled in countless swarms. Reefs shimmered with life. It was a world in full bloom, a planet thriving at the height of its abundance. And yet, above this flourishing Earth, something moved through space, a body of stone and metal, 6 miles wide, ancient beyond comprehension, drifted silently across the void. It had circled the sun for eons, unnoticed, irrelevant, but orbital paths shifted, gravity tugged, chance aligned, its trajectory bent, and it was drawn toward Earth. In the endless black of space, it was nothing more than a rock, but on Earth, it would be everything. Mainstream science frames the story with precision. Geological layers reveal the evidence, a thin band of iridium, rare on Earth but common in asteroids, deposited across the globe. Beneath it lie fossils of a world in bloom, above it silence, an abrupt line marking one of the greatest extinctions in Earth's history. The Chicxulub crater in the Yucatan Peninsula, over 50 kilometers wide, records the impact. Shocked quartz, glassy tektites, and soot testify to a moment of unimaginable violence. The data is clear. Around 66 million years ago, the sky fell. Pause here. Imagine standing in a late Cretaceous valley the day before. The sun rises golden over meadows, warming flowers into bloom. Hadrosaur graze in herds, their calls low and resonant. Triceratops lift their heads, horns gleaming, breath steaming in morning air. The asteroid's descent was swift, measured not in centuries or years, but in moments. Traveling at tens of thousands of kilometers per hour, it tore through atmosphere with a heat brighter than suns. Air itself compressed before it, igniting forests below before it even struck. In seconds, Earth shifted from abundance to cataclysm. When it hit, the energy released was greater than billions of nuclear bombs. Rock and vapor blasted skyward, fire spread across continents, and shockwaves circled the planet. Mainstream paleontology reconstructs the aftermath with clarity. The impact vaporized oceans, forests, and life at ground zero. Tsunamis surged across seas, waves taller than cities, sweeping coastlines. Fires raged globally, ignited by debris raining back to Earth. The atmosphere itself aflame. Dust and ash blotted out sunlight, plunging the planet into darkness. Temperatures dropped, photosynthesis faltered, ecosystems collapsed. Within months, food chains unraveled, and within years, 3/4 of all species were gone. Pause again. Imagine being there, not at the center, but far away, perhaps in a valley where herds grazed. The sky brightened suddenly, unnaturally, the air shimmering with heat. Birds shriek, herds stir, predators pause, then seconds later, the ground shakes, trees crash. The horizon glows with fire. A roar, louder than thunder, deeper than mountains, rolls across the land. You cover your ears, but the sound is everywhere, the ground itself screaming. In the sky, a column of light and ash rises, spreading into darkness. You realize the sun is gone, hidden, perhaps forever. Speculation invites us to dwell in this moment. What would the last dawn have felt like for a Triceratops calf, grazing under its mother's watchful horns? For a hadrosaur herd, their calls echoing across misty plains? For a Tyrannosaurus, confident in its strength, unaware that strength would soon mean nothing? Did they sense it? Subtle shifts in air, vibrations from afar, a silence deeper than usual? Or did the end arrive as shock, sudden and absolute? A curtain dropped upon a stage mid-performance. The asteroid itself was blind, without malice, without intent. Yet its arrival reshaped Earth utterly. It reminds us of the fragility of abundance, the precariousness of life's balances. For millions of years, Dinosaurs had ruled, their dominance unchallenged, but no adaptation, no horn, no tooth, no herd could withstand the sky falling. Their reign ended not in gradual decline, but in catastrophe, swift, brutal, decisive. Pause once more, reflect on the tension of this story. We often think of history as built by progress, by victories, by survival, yet sometimes it is endings that define epochs. Endings that carve sharp lines across time. The Mesozoic did not fade. It was severed, cut by a single event that transformed Earth forever. When you look at a fossil of a dinosaur today, you are looking at not only a life lived, but a world ended, story cut short by fire from the heavens. As this first half of the chapter closes, the asteroid has struck. The sky is dark, the fires rage, and silence spreads across Earth. In the continuation, we will walk through the aftermath, the long night, the collapse of ecosystems, and the survivors who endure, for in every ending lies a beginning, and even as giants fell, life found a way to rise again. When the asteroid struck, the first moments were fire. Forests ignited across continents, sparked not only by the heat of impact, but by debris raining down, glowing as it fell. Trees burst into flame, plains roared with burning winds, and oceans boiled at their edges. Herds of hadrosaurs scattered, predators fled, birds shrieked into darkening skies, but there was no direction safe to run. Within hours, entire ecosystems were ablaze. The world transformed into an inferno. Then came the night. Ash and soot rose high into atmosphere, spreading across the globe, blotting out the sun. Days turned to twilight, twilight to darkness. A shroud that lingered not for hours, but for months. Photosynthesis faltered. Plants withered, flowers shriveled, forests thinned, herbivores, deprived of food, starved in herds, their bodies collapsing in valleys once alive with abundance. Predators, deprived of prey, soon followed. Even the tyrants, whose jaws could crush bone, could not crush hunger. Mainstream science describes this as a collapse of food chains. At first, small organisms endured fungi feeding on decaying forests, insects scavenging on the remains, mammals burrowing into safety. But for giants, for the rulers of the Mesozoic, survival required abundance, and abundance was gone. Within years, 3/4 of Earth's species vanished. Dinosaurs, ammonites, marine reptiles, all were swept away. Only birds, the feathered heirs of theropods, clung to survival, their light bodies and flexible diets carrying them through the darkness. Pause here. Imagine walking through a valley in the first weeks after impact. The air is thick with ash, the sun a faint red disk. The ground is littered with fallen leaves, with carcasses of herbivores, too weak to move. The silence is suffocating, broken only by crackle of distant fire and the rasp of insects. You breathe, and the air tastes of soot, dry and bitter. The world feels hollow, emptied of rhythm, as though Earth itself is holding its breath. Speculation asks us to linger in that silence. What did it mean for the last Triceratops to stand in meadows stripped of grass, horns heavy, stomach empty? Did the final Tyrannosaurus still prowl valleys, roaring into darkness, searching for prey that no longer came? Did birds call from trees, their voices thin, brittle, yet enduring? Extinction is not only death, it is loneliness, the absence of familiar sound, the unraveling of community. To live in that time was to live in absence, in endings layered upon endings. Yet even in this catastrophe, life persisted. Crocodiles, lurking in rivers, endured on scraps, their slow metabolisms carrying them through famine. Mammals, small and nocturnal, scavenged seeds, insects and roots, hidden in burrows that insulated them from heat and cold. Birds adapted, shifting diets, spreading into niches left empty. The very small survived, not because they were strongest, but because they were most flexible, most able to bend without breaking. Pause again, reflect on this paradox. The rulers, the giants, the titans fell, but the fragile endured. The asteroid did not end life, but it ended one kind of life. It reminds us that history is not written by strength alone, but by adaptability, by resilience. Every bird in the sky today is proof of this truth, each feather a survivor's inheritance. Mainstream evidence shows how the earth slowly healed. Ash settled, sunlight returned, plants sprouted from soil enriched by decay, forests regrew, oceans refilled with life, ecosystems rebuilt. But the world that emerged was not the same without dinosaurs. Mammals expanded, filling niches once closed. The stage was set for a new age, not of giants, but of fur, of intelligence, of us. Speculation lets us ask, if the asteroid had missed, would Earth still be a world of dinosaurs? Would hadrosaur herds still thunder across meadows, tyrants still stalk valleys, horned kings still clash in fields of flowers? Pause once more. Picture standing at the edge of a recovering forest. Years later, small mammals scurry in undergrowth, insects buzz in air, birds sing cautiously from branches. The ground still bears scars of fire, the air still smells of ash, but life has returned. You close your eyes, listening. The roars are gone, the thunder of herds silenced, yet the chorus of survivors carries forward, voices smaller but persistent. In their song, you hear continuity, a reminder that Earth always endured. The asteroid impact was one of Earth's great resets. It severed the age of dinosaurs, ended lineages that had ruled for over 150 million years, and cleared space for new dominions. It was an ending written in fire, but also a beginning written in resilience. Every dawn since carries that memory, every living creature a fragment of survival. As this chapter closes, one reflection lingers. Is it endings that define Earth's history, or the life that rises after? Perhaps it is both. The Mesozoic ended not with silence, but with transformation, with the promise that life, though fragile, is unstoppable. In the next and final chapter, we step back into the present. We reflect on the Mesozoic as memory, as myth, as science, and as imagination. We remember the giants, the predators, the seas, the forests, the skies, and we carry forward gratitude for flowers, for birds, for resilience, that their world, though gone, still echoes in ours. The Mesozoic is gone, but it is never silent. Its echoes linger in the bones of fossils that rest in stone, in the birds that greet each dawn, and the imagination of every person who has ever stood before a dinosaur skeleton and felt wonder ripple through them. The giants are no longer here, but their shadows stretch long across time, reminding us that Earth is not only a planet of the present, but a memory of worlds that came before. When you hear the call of a bird at sunrise, you are hearing the faintest continuation of raptors that once darted through ferns. When you walk across grasslands, you tread upon ground that shook beneath the weight of herds of hadrosaurs. When you hold a fossil in your hand, you hold not only stone, but the silence of an age ended, and the resilience of life that endured. The past is not lost, it is folded into the present, woven into every breath, every song, every sunrise. Pause for a moment, and imagine lying beneath the stars. Above you stretches the same sky that shone down on Triceratops herds, on Tyrannosaurus prowling valleys, on the first birds calling through canopies. The constellations have shifted, but the stars are eternal witnesses, keeping memory of worlds gone by. Beneath you, the earth hums with its long history, each layer of soil a page in its story, each fossil a sentence carved in time. To rest in that awareness is to feel both small and infinite. One heartbeat in a story that spans billions of years. The ending of the Mesozoic reminds us of fragility, of how abundance can vanish in a single moment, how even the mightiest fall when the sky itself collapses. But it also reminds us of resilience. Life did not stop. It transformed, adapted, rose again. From fire and darkness, from silence and ash, came flowers, birds, and eventually us. To live today is to be proof of survival, to carry forward the legacy of those who came before, to honor their memory with gratitude. And so we close our journey not with sorrow, but with wonder. The dinosaurs are gone, but their stories live in stone and sky, in science and imagination. in every child who dreams of walking beside them. The Mesozoic is a lost world, yes, but it is also a living echo, a presence that still shapes us. Before we part, let me leave you with a question, one I'd love for you to answer, one that binds us together as a community of dreamers and learners. What creature of the Mesozoic would you most want to meet, if only for a moment? Would it be the gentle majesty of a sauropod, the ferocity of a tyrannosaurus, the brilliance of a feathered raptor, or the elegance of the first bird taking flight? Close your eyes tonight and imagine that meeting. Let it carry you into rest, into dreams, into gratitude for a world that was, and for the fragile, wondrous world that is.